Hi everyone, my name is Biringkpa Obinna Emeka. I am the host of the podcast Boring Conversations. Today I have an important person as a guest, a brother, a friend, a countryman, one who ordinarily wants to see that things get better in a place like Nigeria, one who wants to see that Africa ordinarily comes to get it right and see to it that things ordinarily come to work out well for not just himself, but for his countrymen and women. Somebody who's been very vocal as it concerns how things ordinarily should be and how things ordinarily should function in a place like Nigeria. Somebody who cares deeply about the situation of the country. Somebody who cares about the fact that the youths, to a large extent, are getting it almost the wrong way, if not completely so. Someone who cares about the situation where he finds himself, and that happens to be where he finds himself, which we're going to get to know in a short period of time. But somebody who also is deeply cosmopolitan in his vision in terms of coming to see that not just his own part of the country gets to function, that every part of the country, in relation to the continent of Africa, and by extension in relation to the world, ordinarily come to function and function well. I'm talking about somebody you'll be very much interested in coming to know. Somebody who a few years ago gave us Johnny, somebody who has given us a whole lot of stuff, somebody who has given us a serious rendition of Dike's Fix the Politics. And sometimes, for me, I even find it difficult to ordinarily remember Dike's version of Fix the Politics as opposed to his own. And then where you get to see the pause and you get to see everything. It's wonderful to have the person I have today here. And I will not be doing the introduction. I've done the much I can do. Let's allow the man speak for himself. Welcome, my brother.
Yeah, thank you, Obin. I greet you specially.
I greet you, my brother.
And from this side of Africa to Nigeria and also Warri precisely. So
Sure,
I,
why not they carry last?
so I'm repping well, I'm representing well. So thank you very much. I am Karo Enajemo, and I'm Robo by tribe, and also I'm also Nigerian. I It's like what Obin has said. I'm here to say my bits, say what I think about whatever we have to discuss today, and also share my perspective about that which is the Nigerian experience, especially as it relates to the issues concerning the young people, and also to our politics, religion, and also the art, especially. So yes, and also I am an oral literary critic. Recently, I got a master's, or I bagged my master's degree from the University of Ibadan. So yes, and I feel I have that strength now to do a lot of literary criticisms and a lot of evaluations of whatever we have there as art. So yes, that's Carol.
Welcome, my brother. You've heard from the man himself. He's just trying to be very humble and trying to, present things the African way, the very simple way of, let's
Yeah.
just say the least of ourselves, but we get to see that in a bit. But to move on, my brother, how did you come about this? Have you always wanted to do the arts? Have you always wanted to do this, or you're among the ranks of those who ordinarily were like doctors, like Chino Achebe, who was in medical school and then moved away? He also attended Ibadan University College,
Yes.
as it used to be called then. They were the first set actually when it got open. Or you were like the set of Chimamanda, who ordinarily was into the medical field, also moved to pharmacy and then went to political science and media and then ended up becoming a writer. Or you've always thought about, when you were just born, the ancestors came whispering in your ear, just like the Beatles, Mother Mary speaking to them and saying, Carol, I think you should be an artist. How did it come about?
Okay, I made a recent post on my uncle's birthday, and I kind of
Sure.
review how that
Yeah.
happened. It's actually a situation of just a boy who loves art, not just art, but hip hop, rhymes, poetry, and singing, basically. So I got interested from hearing people rhyme and just hearing the likes of Nas, Tupac, the DMX, and some of these rap artists in those days that's talking about the late 20th century to the early 21st century. So I was amongst those set of children who were actively listening to rap. We got exposed to them. My uncle was that kind of person who would come around with a new release tape or whatever, and a mixtape, and just say, everybody listen, or you just put it and he'll be listening and enjoying himself. And I'll be there listening. I was so curious to understand how come these guys know how to use words this way, how are they able to combine them in this way, in this pattern, in this structure. So I was getting very inquisitive that I started learning and also observing. And from some situations like that, my uncle would come with his friends, and I was somehow just trying to please them, impress them, that I can also rhyme like these guys, rhyme their rhymes, let's put it like that. So sing their songs too. So they started listening to me and they were paying attention that this guy has potentials. They will look at you as a child, like this boy has potentials. Let's encourage him. So sometimes they come around and I'll just be rapping and rhyming. Maybe DMX just release a new track. I'll go over it and rhyme it. And they'll be looking, Karo, you deserve something. I remember the highest amount I got, or the compensation I got then, was more like 20 naira. Yes. And that was a lot for me. That was a lot for me. So after giving a particular performance, like, oh boy, no, you deserve something. Take this. Man, I was so excited, and I felt like maybe there's a future in this. So I should go. But though, like other children, at the time, I figured out that if you are not sounding, should I say, very ambitious with those careers that are somehow very professional, you were not counted as serious, right? So if anyone asks you, what do you want to be in life? You were like, okay, I want to be a lawyer. It sounds serious, right? So they tend to take you as, okay, this boy has a good future. He knows where he's he knows where he's going. So let's encourage him. So for me, I was trying to become an engineer. So it's changed for me one day when I visited my uncle's, what's it called, like media house. He was then a journalist in Times magazine, and also they call it PM News. And I got there, they asked me the question, what do you want to do, or what do you want to become later in the future? I told them I want to study engineering. And one of the persons there looked at me, are you sure? I said, yes, sir. Are you sure? He asked again. I said, yes, sir. He said, okay, no problem. And maybe you will not be like those people that later change in life. I was like, I will become an engineer. So I started thinking about, is it true? Let me think about my potentials. As a child, imagine I had this thought. Do I really want to become an engineer or something else? This was later on when I was feeling for JAM that I felt like, okay, I felt like fate was leading me to choose English. And finally, we chose English. And going into the university, the vision became clear, the path to destiny became clear, and I knew that this was what I should do, and I have the potential for it, so I must invest into it. So that was just a brief story of how it started. Yeah.
Wow, wow. So at least your case was not even the fact that at least you applied to want to do this and then get to
No,
disappoint your
straight up,
family.
fly
Straight
straight.
up, just let's do this and let's do this well. And talking about rhymes, talking about the whole idea of the folk kind of stuff. You've done some piece about Bob Dylan, and how do you come about him? And was he also from your uncle, or you just met him as you matured in the life?
Yes, yes. I think it was just some interest I developed over time for poetry. Even while studying poetry, I discovered that there was a kind of poetry that I liked a lot. It was free verse. I wasn't a fan of the blank verses and those more convoluted and restricted traditional kind of poetry. But I felt at the time that I needed to read more poetry that actually were very relatable, but also at the time very deep in meaning, right? So somehow I got introduced to folk songs. I listened to a lot of Jim Reeves too, obviously many Africans and many
Of course,
Nigerians.
of course.
So considering their poetry, and also Jim Reeves was someone who also did spoken word poetry, because people didn't even know that. They thought he was just a musician, but he also did spoken word poetry. So I got interested and I was listening to some of their songs, and from there I got connected to the likes of the Beatles, and I was seeing that okay, they were doing the similar things. Then surprisingly, more like, let's call it a moment of epiphany, I came in contact with Bob Dylan. Now, times are changing was the changing factor, changing moment for me. I was like, what kind of writing is this? I started investigating this guy. And I discovered that he was not just a musician at the surface level, which many people would just say he was just a singer. No, he was also a poet, a deep one at that. We had a discussion a time ago, and we were saying that this guy maybe was not very intentional about it. He was, like you said,
He
he was
was, yeah,
very
yeah.
intentional about all he was writing. And he was so skillful with words. And his disposition would actually tell you differently. Like, it will show you something else. Like, is this guy the same person who wrote this, or we should look for another, right? Because sometimes I had that feeling. So maybe he had ghostwriters like many guys do now. So, but no, he was that exposed. Like, he had the biblical influences from folk singers before him, even the Irish traditions of folk songs and some other things like that. So truly, I developed into getting such interest in folk music, and I even have it in mind to really write like that, particularly my songs, because I also sing and write music too. So I have it in mind, like a serious ambition to really write like Dylan. I pray it happens, but that is one ambition. So I just developed into that interest over time. Yeah.
Wow, wow. That is a lot down there, and we are glad you ordinarily followed the path you followed. And if we were to look at one of his works, Blowing in the Wind, and use that to juxtapose the current situation we find ourselves, you find him in that particular piece asking the questions: how many times, how many times, how many times, how many times will you look at a man before you call him a man, and all that. And we are juxtaposing that with someone like Martin Luther King, who says, I'm tired of actually asking for the things that ordinarily should have been mine right from the period of my birth or even before my existence. Are you tired of asking for the things that ordinarily should be the right of Nigerians, the extension Africans, and also in relation to the global world? Are you tired of looking at the existential stuffs in Nigeria, and you join the folks that get to say, there's no hope, this is Nigeria, or you're having a different disposition?
Yeah, surely I have a perspective, disposition, and also expectation about that. Yes, one has come to that extent where you realize that indeed maybe it's a very hopeless situation, that somehow there is no end to this journey. It's just a big cycle of us going through this phase of suffering. Every 4 years we have promises of renewal, of change, of development, of some form of transformation, but somehow we don't get there. So it's becoming vague, it's becoming hopeless, and there's a form of disillusionment too. We are tired of it. We can't keep on grappling with this. And I kid you not, I have had enough reasons to come to that conclusion too. I recently have been grappling with this issue of NEPA lights, what the power sector here. When I sometimes sit in my room to really consider why I don't have lights, they tell you that there's this rationing going on. The other streets, they are having it for 3 hours. Then your street will get it for 6 hours. Then you should wait for the other street. So in case something even goes wrong, we are now hoping that, okay, why is it's our own ration now? Why are we not having lights? If something happened to the transformer, blah, blah, blah. So, and I begin to imagine a country as big as Nigeria, a country not just as big, that has these human resources we have, and we even export our human resources too, that has this power to transform any nation, to even invest in other nations to make them great. We are still grappling with this little problem of power, even in this 21st century at this particular time. So, it's enough reason. That is one reason for people to give up, to go to a better environment, a better economy where they won't be having problems with power or security or even road networks or so. Or just these little things. I was telling somebody some days ago, I told them simply, I said that if any governor comes today to do the very basic things that a country or an economy needs, we praise them for doing very big and wonderful things. When in fact, what they are doing is not innovative, is nothing new, is what is expected of this government. But yet, imagine one, I won't say one, our governor right now in Delta State is heavily investing into road networks and bridges and flyovers, and somehow the country, and even recently was awarded for being the best governor. And people are praising, like, yeah, he's doing well. And yes, we commend him for that, but is that very innovative? No, it's a basic need. The economy needs it. So we are praising them for the things they should ordinarily do. But what is innovative about their tenures? What is it that they brought that is different from what the others brought? Really, there's nothing new. So I have enough reasons, really, to give up. But necessity drives me to continue, to keep on hoping. The problem really is with the fact that whatever they are doing is not quite innovative. It's just them doing their really basic responsibilities, right? Just taking charge of that which they need to do to actually sustain the economy, sustain the people, and to just make life better for the citizens. So I think that really there are a lot of reasons for us to be vexed. There are a lot of reasons for us to lose hope in the country because really these people come in and it seems as if they have no targets, they have nothing new to give. They are just trying to recycle ideas and make promises that are vague and nothing really happens even after they're elected. So on and on. We have seen this cycle for many years, for many decades, and still things are not changing. So that is enough reason for somebody to say, listen, I can't continue in this space. Let me go to a better environment that is working, right? So, but one thing for me, why I'm still here, one would ask, why is it that you are still somehow very hopeful? Because sometimes the reason why many of us have not even left is because we don't have the means. So yes, so I was saying that so if some of us have the means, we wouldn't be here in the first place. Some of us would have used, let me use the word now, jackpot out of the environment, so to find a better location to live in and thrive well in, and not come back to remembering what it means to have mosquito kill you because there's no fan to blow them off or weaken their flights, or just on and on. So, but for me, I feel there is a form of necessity that drives me to remain here. And not just to remain here to talk about the things I talk about, because I see these things every day. And I feel more like a purpose is given to me to do that. I don't feel it. I must say this precisely too. The Lord said I should. Now, when I say the Lord said I should, I'm talking from a Christian perspective. I believe that the Lord has given me a purpose to address some of these things. And I write intentionally too. I write intentionally because I know these things have to be talked about. These things must be addressed in the way they should be addressed, particularly through the perspective I address them. I know there are a lot of philosophies out there. There are a lot of isms out there. There's the Marxism. There's there's existentialism. There's somebody said these are isms that should be wasms. You know, so with all the isms out there, we know there are. But I feel I still believe strongly, and I believe other people who hold those ideologies too believe also with the ideologies they can also infect change. So I believe with mine, which is a Christian perspective, I believe with the perspective and the principles and the worldview of Christ and other biblical characters, I can also effect change, right? So I tend to live in that hope I have and that sense of belonging to this environment where God has divinely placed me to see the issues the way they are and address them the way they should be addressed through heaven's eyes. So yeah, basically, that's on that.
Wow. This is a good perspective, and it's a perspective very few persons ordinarily come to hold. Many persons just come to buy this idea that, there's nothing. But then if we are to look at someone like James Bowen, he gets to say, do you want to look at the children and tell them there's no hope? Do you want to tell the children and tell them there's no hope, and tell yourself you cannot have hope because you are currently going through what? And he posits to us that you can go anywhere in the world, stand in any crowd, and look at a person anywhere, probably a sufferer and whatsoever, and that person might be you. You can think you have the worst of life, you can think you have the most devastating experience in life, and then you read. And when you read, you meet people. And when you meet people through books, you come to see that, the world is not that static as ordinarily we want to come to believe, or what we have allowed ourselves to come to hold. And so if I am to shift a bit, how how have you been able to do this? Like you've pointed out the divine side. Also the tie to education also is down there. How do you relate to the idea of, people saying a thing like education is a scam?
I think I deliberately had to organize a forum once in church where I told young people and even had to bring in an associate professor from the Delta State University who came around to, he's also a pastor, Pastor Charles Otobrise. He came around to also inform the students and these young people of his perspective about this school and scam concept that is flying everywhere. Is somebody who education changed his life. I kid you not, there are testimonies to this fact, where there are persons who became hopeless, who somehow they had no. There's this path to their life that you would say that there is really nothing good that will come out of Nazareth, right? Nothing good would come out from this person's experience. But when they found education, when they started reading, when they got into the four walls of the university, they started interacting with saner minds and people who are intellectuals, people who are vast in some knowledge or some forms of experiences, particularly documented experiences. They started thinking about life differently. They started seeing life differently. And they started getting more interested in reading, finding themselves understanding the world even better, the world about them, the world around them better. And this is education in itself, where you become very vast in a field of study, in a particular knowledge, and in some experiences. And as you begin to encroach into that environment or become familiar with that particular knowledge, you want to even invest more into getting the best of it. So one thing I must say here, beyond beyond an exams requirement, education is needed for living or leading better lives, not just for yourself, but for the betterment of your environment. There are a lot about us that without education, we wouldn't have been here or wouldn't have been getting today. Without the basic provisions of education. And sometimes when we talk about education, we are just talking about the concept of school. Education generally beats that. So when you find yourself learning, whatever it is, and no matter the form or the strategy you are using to learn, basically you are gaining education. But we can also go to the benefit of also the four walls of a school. What is the benefit of going to a school aside getting a degree? Some persons today now, they are not telling you that what really matters is not certificate, but certificates, right? So if you don't say, and that's in our parlance, the pidgin parlance, what sabi means is we have expertise in a particular field, particularly you can practically do that which you've learned. So the thing there is this, while we are trying to promote that, we must also promote the fact that education helps the mind grow. For people who are experts in some ventures or some practice or so, sometimes ask them questions that has to do with the human mind or just basic philosophies or ideas in life. They don't really know what to answer. But all they are good at is that which their hands are found to do. And I kid you not, they have the best of money, like the best of provisions in their account. But I kid you not, when you come to the matters of the mind, and the development of the human mind and human conditions, sir, they have nothing to provide. All they know is whatever their bank account can satisfy. So indeed, education is a scam problem, is actually, I call it, is I don't even know what to even describe it, but it's a problem. It's a problem to our environment, and really we must discourage it by all means by continually showing the testimonies of what education has done and what it is that it can do to the development of our societies and economy also. And without education, really, the government and whatever it is, the principles they apply to growing our economy won't be very possible. So education is not a scam, really. That's my perspective, and I have more to say, but for time's sake, please.
Yeah, so I say this because recently someone like Daddy Freeze, alongside also our public intellectual Reno Omokri, come up with this whole idea of things to study as to, they project this idea of things to study to be able to function abroad. So they groom students back from Nigeria, telling them, these are the things you need to study if you want to get employed abroad. It's a crazy venture we're already doing, study nursing, study engineering, study this, don't study philosophy, don't study this, so that you can be employed abroad. But the premise they don't look at here is the premise of saying, you are studying, we don't want you to study to fix the country, where we want you to study to go work for another country. We are unconsciously saying, we are not seeing the country get better anytime soon. So you just have to work and get an education within a particular field of studies that can employ you abroad. And then it brings this problem of, is it the fact that these persons have given up with the prospect of the country? And in a recent video that the Freeze also posted, he was talking to Egungu of Lagos, and
I saw
he
that.
was like, you must have graduated with your third class, right? And You have a 2-1, you have a 2-1, and you are all working for somebody who is a school, who is a
Was
dropout.
school
So
dropout.
all tied with this type of thing concerning money, concerning money and money alone. And money have come to
Just to cut you, sorry.
okay,
I need to
okay,
state these facts.
okay.
The problem really is with the longing to satisfy self, not community. Self. These are the things you must do to get this for yourself. If you do this, you won't get this for yourself. And you know the people that are affected a lot? The humanities. Because they begin to discourage people studying English, history or philosophy, even religious
Sociology,
studies,
yeah.
sociology, and anthropology, and the rest. But mind you, the world we have today, the structures of the world and the principles that guide the world and that is holding what's it called now? The foundations holding the world, particularly the philosophies of today, they are actually all built and founded by this particular faculty or this part of studies called the humanities. You want to go back to Plato, you want to go back to Socrates, you want to go back to the Aristotles, even the Alexanders, and coming back to the Euripides, the writers, and some other people like that. You want to even come to more modernist ideologies and the rest like that actually have formed, even the Reno Omokri you are talking about. Some of the ideas he shared, he doesn't share because it was money that basically informs whatever he's saying. He shares them because of the foundation of, let me say it like this, because of somebody's hard labor in researching history. Because he claims to know a lot of history about the Nigerian history, a lot of traditional history. But who brought those knowledge to bear? Who brought them to his doorsteps? People who put in hard time to research history, anthropologists, historians, literary artists. You get the point? So if they continually sell this idea of longing for the self and not community, who in the next 50 years, I kid you not, and this is going to be, it's not a promise, I'm not a prophet of doom, but in the next 50 years, we are going to raise a generation of selfish people who don't understand anything about community and how to change or grow community. So it's going to be about self, 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 self. And then there will be a lot of philosophical and ideological breakdown. We'll then be depending on the past to help us think towards the future, when we should be having men bringing new ideas, new philosophical viewpoints, or some structures to help us mentally see the world around us. Okay, you are, sir, yeah, the thing is appalling. So yes, I just said to say that. Sometimes this
Yeah,
passion is it is where it is where.
I understand. I don't consider Reno an intellectual. I'm sorry for Nigerians who ordinarily go down that particular path. When DC stays beneath ordinarily what you get to do, I don't really get to do that. I rather stay with those who ordinarily are scared of their level of ignorance as opposed to those who want to posit how much they don't know and claim to know that they know that much. The whole idea of the Kruger effect on the psychology of the human person as getting this idea, I know it all. Come on, Nigeria's history is so vast, and we don't even have enough from the humanities. People talk about, it's all about money. Now it's a capitalist system, but there were guys who founded the capitalist system we now have, and it was benched and forged from from the stable of philosophy. Even the Marxism people, many persons try to opine from an African perspective, is also still born out of what people sat down, thought about these things. Elon Musk is almost being quoted almost all the time to talk about we don't really care about education and all that, but go and see the criteria you get to ordinarily meet before you get to be employed in Tesla. They don't just pick somebody who sits in church. It's one of these things people don't really look at. You don't just pick anybody to fly the plane. You don't just pick anybody to build the road. You don't just pick anybody and give
Very
the
important.
chief contractor of Julius Berger to build the second Niger bridge, despite how long it took. You don't just pick anybody to say, okay, now you come and fly the president, or you come now and get the rifle that ordinarily will be used to guide the president or guide our leaders. You don't just see anybody just say, okay, the CCTV cameras we are having can just be born in and out of anything. I think there's a last chunk of the premises that is chopped out of the equation. When people talk about education, when people talk about the whole idea of money, and by the way, what will happen when we must have finished cutting down all the trees and printing all the money and discovering that we are left with nothing. Money doesn't provide food as much as it can aid you buying food. It's not the money you eat. Despite the large chunk of what people get to flaunt on the internet or whatever, they don't eat the money. They eat the food. And the food comes from research. The food comes from agriculture. The food comes from policies that ordinarily have been made possible by the government of a particular country. The food comes from studies done by anthropologists as to how, we have so and so food in the Niger Delta. We have so and so stuff from the creeks. You can find so shrimps here. It's not born out of those who have money. It's born out of those who, by the sweat of their hands and by the vision of their brain, sit down, go do the work, go into the villages and say, you know what, give me data, give me information, let me write a book, let me do stuff. Money probably should be looked at as an afterthought, not as the main thing itself. And like you said, everything you said, I agree with everything you said. The sense of the self and the sense of levels of selfishness going further. It's a thing that ordinarily has come to see that we now have more hookup babes and we now have more fraudsters in our society. And they don't see that their dignity is being threatened here. The whole idea of you being a fraudster or you being a hookup babe, you are one way or the other shut out of empathy, shut out of sympathy. Around the region you find yourself, around the community you find yourself, and from the daily realities of the things you see online, what is the current state of affairs as it concerns hookup phenomenon, fraudsters, and the legitimization of these particular ventures? And you find it problematic, or you find it cool, like many persons do?
Yes, I just on the thought you just gave on what's it called, education, and also it's the need of education in our societies. I just had a thought, and I before I go back to your question, the thought is simply on, for the things that matter to the growth of community, we need educated men and women to drive them. But when it comes to self, there's no need for your education, really. You can do anything. You don't go to school or whatever, but you can get all the money you want. But really, then what is your contribution to the human experience or development of community afterwards? Because some persons will tell you, I will then use the money to give back to society. How many have you given? Really, like, how many have you? I ask this question a lot because people are getting more richer, but yet social corporate responsibilities or whatever, you don't see them around really. They just pack a bag of Indomie, what's it called, noodles and rice and gari and some other things once a year or twice a year. Put a camera on their faces while doing that, so people can understand that, look at me now, I'm doing this thing. Don't say I don't give back. Then you record yourself doing that, and that is all to it. Really, I think that's even what your money can do, but really there is nothing more. But going back to the question, there's a phenomenon right now, and it's a painful thing because I see these things every day. I'm even in a place, and I'm being careful too, because I'm not in that a trip of trying to denigrate or demean the environment that actually has given me a lot, right? But at the same time, I must also speak to the realities here. The problem really is that there is this encouragement by society to allow young men and women continue in this way of life, to lead this way of life. It's an encouraging situation. They encourage them to do it. They don't say it out loud. They don't come to the pulpit to preach it. They don't go to the street to alarm it to them that, hey, continue being prostitutes. No, they encourage it. For instance, do you know the people who patronize these girls are men that are leaders of the economy and the country and the states that we are in, even community leaders and local government chairmen and the rest? They are the same people who patronize these people. So in case you are speaking with one part of your mouth that prostitution is bad, but with the other end you are saying that, hey, so how much for a night because you look so fine. So really that's a problem, because we are encouraging the situation. Imagine a young woman prostituting with her body, standing very close to ShopRite. There's a particular part of a phone called ShopRite, very close to, we call everywhere Worry, but it's called a phone anyways, where ShopRite is situated, a part of it where we have very beautiful young women stand at night, hustling customers. Now, somehow, these young men there was a day, let me just share an experience. There was a day I was coming back. I kind of went to bring, what's it called now, where my auntie's husband stopped for me to come take him home. So I drove down there and he said, okay, let's go to a ShopRite to get some things for the people at home, right? So just surprise them with cakes or whatever because it was coming from offshore. And so we also, we went in there. Obina, on our way into ShopRite, I saw the things that should not be seen. Not on what it, not on online where you begin to see some pornographic scenes or you begin to see some people expose their body parts or whatever. You can look at that and look away and say, okay, these girls are not dressing well. Let me look away and do it. But this one, you are seeing them face to like they are physically present. I saw, and these girls are so beautiful. You would not even know that. You'll be asking yourself, how come this person has gone into this way of life, looking this fine? What is really her problem? Is it that she looked for a job in a particular institution or organization and she didn't find it, then she resorted to this? Or something went wrong along the line in her upbringing? And I discovered that we saw these things that day and where my uncle was almost weeping, or my auntie's husband was almost weeping when he saw he's a pastor in Deeper Life Church. So when he saw the situation, he has about 7 girls. And he started thinking about the father. Imagine one of my children being like this. God forbid, they're all doing well right now, but just a daughter of mine living in this way of life or living this style of life. So I was then thinking about the fact that some of the mothers of these children, do you know what they do? The proceeds from their prostitution come home and they don't question where it came from. They accept it. Like, I know this thing you are doing, I know it's not my help, but we need to pay rent. So, no, how much do you have? I not can support this, but no problem. So they bring in the money. The next time they bring in the money again, you can only sigh about what you were complaining of. You don't have that voice again. Why? The money has shut you up. So, in that shutting up, you are encouraging the act because you are collecting the proceeds of the prostitution. And we don't want to even go to Yahoo right now, what we call the Yahoo and the cybercrime. They are boys who, and I must tell this now because I know this is going to the public.
Let's just run on the prostitute stuff, and then we can connect them later on.
Okay, so there is it's like I told you before. From now, the first reference I made to leaders, men in society that are actually promoting this and the rest. We see girls, and I kid you not, girls below 15 that are standing in the streets. And personally, I saw a man one day. I saw a man one day that was called by a young woman. And when the woman called him, she was standing looking all fly, trying to attract attention to herself. So I went past her to buy food in a particular part of Airport Junction. So as I was doing that, I observed that she was there trying to, like the Bible made reference to the prostitute standing on the junction of the street, trying to get the attention of young men. So she was just there, but this one, nothing. She was just there, right? So when the man passed, she said, she called him, excuse me. The man looked at her. I was watching this like a movie, right? The man looked at her and the man said, what happened? He said, come. So the man looked again, make I come meet you. That is, should I come and meet you? He said, no, come now. Then the man was still hesitating because it was a public space. So he said, so you, the senior man, to come meet you. So she was like, okay, she then approached him and they did their dialogue and conversation, whatever it is that happened. And from there, there was a movement, both of them, people that didn't know each other, they moved on to whatever business they had. I particularly had this experience in NRA Junction. I was trying to go for an all night where I stood in a particular spot trying to get water. I wanted to get water before I could go for the all night. As I was standing there, there was this, they call it a shower quarter, right? A brothel around the area where I was buying this thing. All of a sudden, as I was standing there trying to get this woman's attention to get me what I wanted so that I can leave, the girl just say, bros, have fun. When I heard that voice, I looked up because it was coming from the dark place, from a dark space. As I heard the voice, I was trying to see if it was somebody who recognized me or something. I said, bros, have fun. As she came out looking all sexy and trying to get me what's it called now, seduced by whatever she was coming with. I frowned, but still I was looking surprised. Like, we don't see many women approaching men here, right? It's not a culture here. Oh, I looked at her and she smiled and looked at me and gave me a kind of wink. to make me understand the language she was speaking. But I saw her like, I nodded in disapproval and continued buying what I wanted to buy. And that was how she retreated. See, it's a norm here. It's a painful experience, but it is the same in Warri. And I've seen the same similar experiences, not like exactly, but I know that it happens in Lagos. It happens in many parts of even the Jaws, and we are hearing situations of people in the north that no matter the hijab or whatever they are wearing, they also prostitute in that. It's a norm and a convention and a phenomenon everywhere in Nigeria because these girls feel that this is the best way out of poverty. I heard, listen, I heard one tell it one day to another person. I was just there, eavesdropping into what they were saying, and she said that not be just my private parts. She used the word raw, not be just waiting they there, right? And I'm going to connect this now to what I was about saying about cybercrime. I sat down. I'm sharing personal experiences. I sat down with my cousin's friend one day in the house. We're just talking, and she shared it. I was like, man, this longing for money is becoming too much. What is the problem, really? She looked at me. He said, anyhow, we get this money. We go make this money. I said, wait, to anyhow? He said, now, what do you mean? Anyhow, we will make this money. Then I wanted to really investigate the problem. Really, is it like really anyhow? Let me bring out the worst case scenario. If in that situation, she still wants to make the money. I asked, even if na ritual, you go do am. He said, even if na ritual blood money, we go shop. See, when you say someone was lost for word, there wasn't anything to say after that. I was dumbfounded. I couldn't look at her the same way. When that girl left the house, I didn't even see her again. But I asked myself the question: Is that how desperate our sisters are to make this money by all means, so to meet a standard created by one celebrity somewhere? Because that's another problem. What they wear on the ground, the Instagrams, and how they are living life up there and the rest. So they believe that for them to be able to meet up with that, they need money. But what's the best way to get money? They've also heard that some of these women prostitute their way to making such money. So is it not just my private parts? Open it up. Sleep with the best of politicians and big men who are encouraging the acts, get the money, and they begin to price. How much for a night? 50,000, 100,000, 300K. For you now, you even see a Gungu a lot who does some of these things with some of these women. And we see a lot of people on social media right now interviewing some of these girls. So how much do you think you can take for a night? And these girls are shameless to tell you that for someone like me, maybe 500K now. As I was asking myself the other day while I was watching one on Facebook, I said, wait, where is shame? Where is shame? Like, yeah, because in those days, Obina, we were ashamed of talking to girls in public.
Of course.
We could not stand to talk without a senior brother or an uncle, an auntie somewhere, somebody, an aunt somebody telling us that what were you doing with that person? You understand the point? So it's a situation that is worth addressing, but at the same time, as it is now, it looks hopeless. Let me leave you to respond to that.
Yeah, the things you are saying are not things strange, almost there's this kind of public affirmation of ordinarily how these things ordinarily run. And just only but recently I had a chance to talk to a young girl, and it's someone I kind of like pay through school too. So she's at the University of Calabar, and in my little way was whenever I come across little cash, I don't promise parents around the places I've been to do so much. I tell them, they keep on telling me how my picking go take go school now. You they say me go write jam, how I go take go school. You are saying my son should go and write jam. How would they go to school? And I'm like, ma, I don't work. The only thing I know is, like my younger sister would say, is to talk and to write. Anywhere I see little amount of money, I would one way or the other try to contribute. But I would promise you something: if you can find a space where she can stay with a relative or where he can stay with a relative, once a year I should be able to pay school fees. And the school fees are so expensive still, in the hundreds of thousands, that ordinarily just leaves you so confusing. And I was talking to her and I'm like, young woman, I feel very bad that, beyond your school fees and beyond whatever the little stuff your parents ordinarily can send to you, I cannot do more than this. And I don't have you alone in those I contribute to their education, from both secondary to university levels. There are persons in different schools, one way or the other. I try to, see to it that life becomes better. And I can tell you for free, education helped a whole lot of persons. It is helping a whole lot of persons. It has helped me. I will not be here talking to you today, Karo, and you will not be here talking to me today if we weren't educated and if we're not able to articulate these particular things. And so back to the whole stuff, I was like, I don't know how you really, really survive, but I hope you've not broken yourself beyond recognition. I hope you can look beyond the horizons of seeing that I don't work, I research and I write, and I do a whole lot of things, religious wise and otherwise. But I hope you come to see that in this 100, 200,000, 300,000 that comes from my end at least once a year or once in 8 months, that you ordinarily come to really appreciate the place it's coming from. And so you find me asking this young woman about ordinarily how things ordinarily have been for her. And I also made her to understand that she shouldn't blame me if I try to, show consent just beyond ordinarily what she might just think as consent, because it's very frightening. We have sisters, we have hope of coming to have girls. I try to let her know the perspective I'm coming from. I have this genuine fear as a distant brother, as she being a sister to me also, and to the many persons out there also you get to talk about. Why will I come to have this particular fear in the first place? It's born out of the fact that out there now, things have been scattered, have come to be looked at from different perspectives. As you rightly pointed out, the whole idea of them just saying, no, be just my private part. As though that is in and about, this reductionist way of looking at things, it's just a thing. And if you can scale through that argument and say it is just a private part, the idea of cheating, even in marriage, will not even come to make sense to you again, because you get people tell themselves, men are biologically wired the way they are wired, and women are biologically wired the way they are wired. But is that the truth? That is not the truth. Men are not biologically wired that way. And if you ask these people who make this argument, they will not have any idea of evolution. They will not have any idea of basic biology. They will not have any idea of basic neuroscience. They don't have any basic idea of the sciences and how ordinarily these things get to flow and get to go. Yet they still come to tell themselves this particular stuff, and they come to have these conversations as it concerns how things ordinarily are. And it's just sad that we continue and go with this narrative. And so you hear people come up with this idea of saying it's in our nature to do this, in our nature to do that. So you find us stay in a country where we come to advocate for these things, and we come to hold ideas that we refuse to really, really interrogate, And we also sometimes can be seen as a people who ordinarily, sometimes you want to argue if we are so scared of change, if we are so scared of making progress, we want to stay one place. And if you should even borrow and try to even give credence to those who postulate and come up with the idea of we going back to our roots, you begin to ask yourself, what roots? So you find our people buying into this idea of wanting to, go back to our roots, wanting to say these things they say. There's no problem with what they try to say if ordinarily attachment to rigor, to ways of thinking and ways of intentionality is also being brought to this particular stuff. Because if biology is anything to go by, the rate at which you give birth to female kids to the ratio of men is slightly higher than the ratio of male birth. And to just come to just come to look at your situation. And it's not peculiar to you. We all have, I don't know if you have sisters. I have sisters, and I know ordinarily the fear that comes, knowing that you have sisters out there. You don't go out every day with them. You don't stay with them every day. You don't know their pressures. You don't know their proclivities. You don't know the ways in which they are being driven. I don't know the ways upon which they can come to be influenced one way or the other by society and all that. And people just continue to day by day glorify money. It still goes back to the old stuff, It's either you're a doctor, or you're an engineer, you're a lawyer, you're a nurse, or you're a nobody in Nigeria. But for the daily things that ordinarily make life move, it's sustained by the love of a very few persons. And you've rightly said it, love for the community and ways in which ordinarily things should go. If you have all the money and ordinarily you cannot come out of your house, what does that mean? The lady that came for the so-called Dirty December, I think in Biringkpa recently, I think during the December, posted a video of houses built like from private wealth and private property and all that, but there's no system working. There are no railways, there are no roads, there are no sewage systems. Everybody is still sinking their own individual boreholes. Everybody is still sinking their soccerways. Everybody is just doing their things on their own. And there are no ambulance. There are things that ordinarily that will make for me not to envy you, my brother. Because when you have your own and I have my own, there's no need to become an arm robber. When you have your own and I have my own, there's no need to think about coming to into your house to steal. So that these things we talk about insecurity as though we need more police officers is ordinarily not the case, because if the place ordinarily is secure from a standpoint of societal connection in which things are ordinarily done, you shouldn't be so scared of people ordinarily wanting to use it for ritual killing. Ritual killing is another thing again on a different level. Like, it speaks the devil. It speaks of how both unscientific and unrational we can ordinarily go, if I'm to even come to even use the last tense I just used down there. But we have the male counterpart, not even the male counterpart now, because I said male counterpart because probably it's fraudster being a fraudster is almost like synonymous with being a guy. But we have the guys and the girls down there doing their stuff. We have the other side of it, the other flip of it. Is it a thing peculiar also in your side? I have met them. I know. I've had conversations with these guys. They tell you, they bring up an argument like, these guys came to our country, they colonized us, they stole our resources, and then now it's our time to bomb back. Like, are you familiar with such arguments?
Not what they stole, what they collected. It's like paper.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I do. I do. Sorry, if you're not through with your thoughts.
No, no, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Okay, the thing is with the fact that, like I said, society encourages this whole thing, and I think if we must deal with the problem, like Dike suggested, also in fix the policy, we must go to the root of it, right? Because sometimes these issues are they transcend the young man, they transcend just a male figure, right? It goes to whatever it is that has made it so. Like he pointed out to why some persons are armed robbers today is because of the lack of maybe the recognition of whatever it is that can help him stand his business, thrive in society, or can even encourage him to even venture into whatever form of entrepreneur he wants to go in. Entrepreneurship he wants to go into. The thing is about society itself, and for the boys or for the male folks, we have situations right now, a situation particularly of people encouraging young people to go into what we call HK. I think I represented that in one of my poems too, where
Yeah, Johnny.
aside the journey on it was
Apart from
on
Johnny, yeah, you did a piece also. I think it can also be seen in the future when you talked about, was it like a song, No Key Yourself, something like that.
not even not kill
Even
yourself
No Key Yourself, it's inside there. Yeah. That's the one I remember now.
too. Then, but in the particular point I'm talking about, it talked about the points whereby they said allow and boys. So
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, 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 yeah. I remember now. I remember now.
Yes. So in that piece, I was making reference to the point, the fact that there's a situation called enrolling boys into HKs. They call the HK hustling kingdom, where you see boys, where boys are in training, in trying to become better Yahoo boys and fraudsters. This is not really talked about, really, because I have seen or I've heard of a situation where mothers hand over their children to these guys, the senior boys in places, to train their children so they can actually become better fraudsters, so they can start racking in the dollars or whatever it is, and then can pay, you understand, the families, or kind of remit money back to the families so to uplift their standard of living or whatever it is they're experiencing. So bring them out of poverty. So yeah, there's this pressure on the young man to enroll into the HK. And now, mind you, it's an informal school system. People don't know it's informal, because what the boys go, I kid you not, as young as 13, 14, 15 year olds, they are being enrolled into the system. It is popular in the West, it is popular in the South. I don't know of the North, but it's popular in the East too, where you have,
It's a global phenomenon. There are centers around the world, from the Philippines, in Indonesia, Mexico.
yeah, about the boy child enrollment to the system.
Oh,
I
okay, okay, okay.
remember my lines. I was trying to remember. I don't know why I forgot. Allow and them boys the night pleasure bed death. No HK has been darker. With SK 150K, smoke this thing. I get extra lighter. Lex flex till the early morning. Maga last last on pay. Shut the door. Make me turn on that Khalifa song. So what we get drunk. Right? So if you remember the first three lines talking about smoking the SK, but SK is more like another form of drug or
Yeah,
substance to smoke here. So uh, they smoke the SK, the HK. The rhyme there is quite a reality, not just for me to rhyme. That is
yeah,
what they. So when you see a 13-year-old and 15-year-old go into such an atmosphere, the elder guys there are constantly smoking several things, taking in several substances, drinking a lot of things, having a lot of mixtures. And that's one essence of that. That is one essence of that point to allow an invoice. I was trying to emphasize the problem of substance abuse because these boys mix a lot to get high. They get to the sky, then down to the ground. Like they start a lot of experiences. Things happen to them. So the point is, when they enter into the atmosphere, it's a different world entirely. Many of them become different people. Even when the parents or family have enrolled them into the system, they don't come back the same people you know. They return so different. The only thing you get from them is the money that you are longing for. And I kid you not, many families are okay with it. Their children have been sold to the devil. There's an exchange in the process. So I give you this person's soul. All you have to give in return is the money. And these children understand that this is a transaction that is being done. Okay, no problem. Let me do all I can do to make this money. That is where even Johnny's case came in. He saw the pressure in society and he's now seeing, he's seeking that news. So mind you, the points laid before the fact that he went into that kind of life was that he was a hardworking person. Who come town when no know Johnny come yesterday? Because for inside school, every day they also. So we know that in somebody that has what it takes to live a better life or to live a better life. But what is the pressure then to make extra? Like I told you once in our conversation before this one, I told you of a guy who was just settling somewhere. I was just around him then, and it was just, I think I was serving them in Aba. Thank you. Like I
hmm
mentioned, it exists. And the guy
yeah,
was
yeah.
just sitting at the backyard, smoking weed. Although I used to talk to him once from time to time, sing with him to encourage him about the Christian faith. But that day he was just behind and he was smoking, and somehow he was very high. And guess the music that was on. What's that guy's name now?
Victor
What's
AD.
that?
If I know make a waiting again.
The guy was singing the song with a very high speed and he was smoking. So the whole thing was getting into his system that the thing was an exciting experience at the same time, something very emotional for him. So it was mixed feelings. So it's emotional because it was like, this money I must make am. If I don't make am, mind you, this desperation, waiting again. And what is the fastest way out of it now? Armed robbery used to be a thing, but it has lessened. but now fraud, internet fraud. So they even try to rationalize it. We are not harming anybody, right? We are not killing our own people, right? So we are just only defrauding the white man or whoever falls prey, because whoever is in quotes, the 419 used to be the thing, but now it's now cybercrime. So the whole thing is just there, and people are investing in this, allowing boys to go into this. And mind you, what are the results? You see young boys come with flashy cars. That even in a community, a boy of 14 years will come with a Venza, and everybody in that environment is applauding the boy's achievement. The question you'll be asking, what is wrong with society? Yes, so like I made reference to the fact that some of these young men are pressured to want to do lots for themselves to provide for family to. A time even came in Johnny, we discovered that he was trying to send sick Mile abroad for special treatment and make Papa get him if he take Kule, all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the thing is that when you have this whole expectations on the young man, like Victor A.D. said, too much pressure on the male figure, right? So society expects this of you, family expects this of you, and on like that. But I understand that. But when a community has a young boy, 14-year-old person, buy a car, a Venza, and the car comes suddenly to the environment, and everybody's applauding the achievements, you begin to wonder what really is the matter with that society. I'm not talking about the boy. There's a reflection of a problem, not just on the boy, but on that community that celebrates such achievements from that boy. I understand that you are going to say that a boy of that age too can be skilled in several, whatever venture, whatever skill or whatever it is that he has learned. He can become anything, so he can get anything. And so, but a 14-year-old, maybe through his skill, getting 10 million naira, is that the best investment you should make at that moment? No matter how good he is in a particular skill, would you advise him to just go and buy a Venza? So we all know where this money comes from. They have done the fraud, they've got the money, now they lavish it. Many of them, what they do is that they don't stay in any accommodation like any residential environment. Where they go to is hotels. They pay for hotels for 3 years, 2 years, some 1 year, some 6 months. A particular room where they go and lodge for a long time. They stay there, invite women over, have a lot to spend, have a lot to drink. You just try to live the lavish life. And the girls too see such guys. We want to stay with some of them, right? Because they have all they need, all they expect. So since the money is here, let us go there, give them what they want, right? And get the money for ourselves, put it in the bag and return to family and give to family or do whatever it is. So the thing is that our boys have been pressured, somehow not just being pressured, but some of them just feel they need to do this to make money. Why? Because they've told themselves, if I don't make money, waiting again. And I don't think maybe we'll talk about it later. The problem of art actually contributing to the problems we're experiencing in society. And truly,
Of course.
what Victor Eddie's song succeeded in bringing to the Nigerian society, apart from the fact that it was through that song he blew up, that's quite all right. But to the child or the boy who has been finding that should I call it now, that string in that drowning state to hold on to, at least to come out to safety. That song was the eye opener, was a strain for him, right? So that hope for him, was a life saving, was a support system for him. So when he got hold of that song, they felt that, man, this is it. If I not make it, waiting I do. That kind of thing.
It's a lot. It's a lot. The pressures are just too much. I can't just imagine that I was just born to chase money. I can't picture that kind of dream and vision for myself. Not even for, if I should say, supposed enemies, if I have. I don't even picture that kind of life for my supposed enemies. Like just 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years on it, making money, chasing the bag. And what happens to the beauty of poetry? What happens to the beauty of coming to love somebody? What happens to the beauty of family life? What happens to the beauty of community? And this whole idea of also, we have given up robbery. Now we are now doing other stuff. It doesn't harm anybody. No, it harms a whole lot of persons. We might want to talk about the psychology of women and men who come to the internet to ordinarily come to look for love. But that is on one side. The side we're looking at is, if you've looked at a movie, if you've come around to see the movie The Beekeeper, you also see this whole idea of a particular amount of money being kept um, under the care of a woman, let's say the money of a community, and then these scamming sites ordinarily had one way or the other to get her contact from spamming and all that, and then she followed the processes, and money kept under her custody by the entire community for an NGO that will ordinarily come to help children were wiped out of the account, and she took her life because she
Wow.
ordinarily couldn't stand it. So that's how the movie line went, and it ended up the way it ended up, and they don't get to stop. There's somebody on the other side, my brothers, my sisters. We have people on the other side who are receiving this stuff. As you are punching your keys in this age whereby the whole idea of proximity and propinquity is a thing we ordinarily don't really come to feel. There's somebody on the other side. And I wish you come to understand that particular fact, that there's a man, there's a woman, there's a father, there's a mother on the other side of the screen. And it goes beyond fraud, it goes beyond scamming, it goes to your comments, it goes to the whole idea of cancel culture, it goes to things like trolling on the internet and everything. There's somebody on the other side receiving this stuff. We are not robots, we are not boots, we're humans, and we have a whole lot of things going out for us. And while we might have a whole lot of journey out there, the society is not helping matters. And if we were to talk about arts, like you rightly mentioned, I don't know if you've been looking at our skits in recent time. Skit and content is another thing we can talk for like 20 years and we will not finish, because I think we don't need so many skit makers. It's my personal opinion. Just imagine the number of persons who are skit makers who are ordinarily supposed to be nurses and doctors and engineers and a whole lot of other things. I'm not saying those who ordinarily want to be comedians shouldn't be comedians, but I'm saying everybody is just having a camera before them and just wanting to be a skit maker and in and about that. And the line upon which we follow, the way we go about our skit, the way we go about it, the glorification of Baka, the whole idea, the sexualization of the whole thing. It's so unbecoming. We talked about Egungun few minutes ago, and there are a whole lot of them. It's like, if you don't have this, what we might call bunda, you cannot really ordinarily survive this industry. What about skit? What about art and skit? What about Dike's call? What about Deji's call for conscious art and activism?
I think just to respond to that quickly, I think the point is uh, it's a very simple issue. I'll just put it like this. Any artist, be you a skit maker, be you a musician, be you a poet, be you a writer, whatever you are, so far you are under the umbrella of art. You must understand that you should, it's actually a duty, you should be honest about the human condition. You should be honest in your representation of the reality. Now, I may sound as a bit realist in saying this, but it's just it's a fact. Life is not all about the backside of a woman, right? Because the point is, a person was trying, I don't know, maybe Kesena Siri, was trying to critique this very problem, where he also is a pastor, a spiritual man, a revivalist, a holiness preacher, and somehow he dabbles into watching some of these kids. So you wouldn't expect him to go there, but he goes there sometimes. And I believe sometimes there's this pleasure in humor. Even the most holy people should at least get some, right? But when they want to go there, what do they see? Like you said, the glorification or veneration of the woman's body. If the comedy doesn't circulate around that, for them it's not pleasurable. So what they do, they go out into the street or into the world of Instagram to scout for the baddest baddies, bring them into their whatever skits, I don't know if they even give the rights or they script out what they do. Or maybe they give general descriptions, do this in the next 1 minute, get it done, and we all go leave this
No,
place.
no, it's
So
just
move in
like
this direction.
whole camera, stand like this.
So move like it's business. Seriously, it's without purpose. It is without any goal to see that the human condition changes or develops. We always have such people in society. But what we should then be encouraging is this promotion of good arts. We need to sell the likes of Dike more to society. We need to sell the likes of Deji more to society. So be Abiodun, the rest, and the kind of poetry they produce. Even Abe Gospel, the guy who just won with
Wait, Agbe talks.
to promote such people because of their contents. But mind you, I've been thinking about this. There is a thin line between promoting conscious arts and also devoiding it of entertainment. See, if you don't strike that balance, there's going to be a problem for how people receive your art. Art in the first place, what makes art is beauty, aesthetics, the philosophy of aesthetics. Without aesthetics of beauty in art, there's going to be a problem with reception of your art. That is why Dike is intentional to blend theater and poetry. Because in one interview recently in Channels, he was being, I don't know, he was just sitting there like, having a conversation, and he said simply, he knows that people think poetry is actually abstract. So to make it interesting, he blends theater with poetry to make it quite entertaining. But while being entertained, you are also being instructed. You're also being informed. So if you have ever been in any of his live performances, it's quite.
I've been to more than I've been to more than 20, I guess. Like in the last one when the last time I was in Nigeria, I sat behind and one of the guys in front turned back and said, "Can you just allow us listen to him?" I didn't know I was that loud. I followed like line by line, and I got into this particular area where I didn't know that I was becoming so loud that the man in front of me just politely said, "Say, bros, I beg, make we listen to her, make him talk to us." And it also happened when he came to Ibadan. And I was also there at when he came to Showing Cast Theater, like 2021, 2022, I guess. I was also in Nigeria, and I also got the opportunity to attend. So you see what he does. Like, he's also having something coming up recently on Valentine's Day on the 14th, and you get to see how he blends Chiquito and how he talks about all of this stuff and how he brings it to relax and all those type of conversations. And
True, true. And I think my point really, where I was trying to land basically was this on this ground. These kids makers, what they really do, and I'll go back to Dike's being a Nigerian show, what they do is to shove down our throats a lot of beauty and aesthetics, that which is pleasing to the eyes. They
yeah,
know that we are people attracted to beauty. So they sell it by every way possible. They even ask questions, what is beautiful now that people are running after? Oh, it's a woman figure. Oh yeah, put it out there. Emphasizes. So the woman they use today, maybe that one has lost whatever form of glory or for whatever patronage. Let's go for another. Yeah, this is finer than the last. Is there a new one on Instagram? Okay, that one is shaking her backside. This one is better than. Okay, let's go. And you see more women going into that trend of actually making sure that their bodies. Thank you. I go back to the Chris when he said, "Shake your money maker."
yeah.
It is a money maker. So I'm saying this because there's a need for us to understand the place of beauty in art. Because there are people who tell you that art is for art's sake. So such people may want to promote just the structure of the art and beauty of the art in itself. But for those who are intentional about saying art is not for art's sake, but art is for man or life's sake, then they tend to want to tell you about this, about that philosophy, about that mindset, about this form of human experience, this side of the human condition. They start to say a lot of that. Then they leave you very bored. I'm not saying anything about boring conversations, anyways, but there's beauty in what we are saying. So so they leave you very bored. You can be watching a film of Nietzsche,
and you are just hearing a lot of philosophical points being thrown here and there, and you are, if you are not philosophically minded, you will enjoy that. But you are just hearing a lot of points, perspectives being thrown, ideologies being interrogated and argued on. And you enjoy that because you are one who is keen to enjoy such. But give
Yeah.
that to a child that is about 10. He will just be watching you. He's on top of this. What is this man saying? It doesn't make sense to him. But add beauty, add some form of comic relief, or just something to whatever Nietzsche is doing, or whatever the character of Nietzsche is being portrayed to do in that particular film or skit or whatever. It will sell better, and it will even make much impact on that young man. And mind you, you can also sell your points very well, your ideas very well, by actually employing art in such a way. If you want to make Nietzsche very relevant in a young man's mind, how do you do it? Incorporate elements of aesthetics, of beauty. They will be enjoying the beauty, but the message is being sown into them. You understand? There's an active process of pushing down into their subconscious the ideas that Nietzsche is selling. And this was how the likes of Bob Dylan was able to penetrate his own generation. Imagine Dylan was just a spoken word poet, just reciting all the words. He would have maybe made much impact. I'm not saying he won't, but I don't think he would have got. Maybe imagine he was just a page poet who just wrote in anthologies. Let me even turn this whole thing around. Imagine the likes of Yeats or BB Yeats, right?
Yeah.
Imagine Yeats or T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound. They were singers also. You would have heard of Bob Dylan.
Of course.
Because those guys had even stronger messages to give to their generation than even Dylan.
If you look at Ezra's Japan, you get to come to like, what are you talking about? You look at
So the point is this: we need to understand the balance between employing this and this, so that it is at the same time pleasurable, also instructive. That I can also learn, but at the same time, I can also have this feeling, this enjoyment, this joy, this purgation of emotions, in whatever it is that you're delivering. So the skit makers, they are emphasizing the point of art, but I don't call what they do great art. It's not great art at all. It has to be discouraged, but we cannot discourage it by shouting about it, talking about it. You understand? We need to then promote, because to remove what is, to remove a bad habit, replace with a better habit. You understand? So if we must let them go into oblivion, then let us promote that which, and mind you, in this boring conversation we are having, I don't know why I'm even calling it that, it sounds strange. But in this boring conversation we are having, we know that even if it's not today, we have an audience that will patronize these things tomorrow.
sure.
We listen attention, we pay attention to the core of what we are discussing and give their minds to it and begin to act on them. So this thing transcends us here, right? So I'm saying that in time, whoever comes to listen to this, they must understand the balance, and they must understand that to do away with what is not good or relevant or what is bad, you need to replace it with what is good and what is moral, whatever it is that you know is right or so. But you must do that artistically, do that with every competence you have and capacity you have to make sure they do that. That's the point. I shouldn't even talk to you because I'm being scared right now to talk. But let me.
At the beginning of our conversation, we had made a reference to a theme you worked on, a theme that goes in lines you are very, very familiar with, and you've come to mention him a whole lot. Dike Chukwumerije, the Nigerian spoken word and performance poet and lawyer, though he doesn't want to talk about that particular part of his life, right? I had asked him once, like, what about this law thing? He always smile, like, my brother, law. But if you look at his work, if you look at the consciousness he has put into that particular stuff from his publication from 2004 up until the current time, you see this sense of consistency down there, and you see ordinarily what he has come to give us. He has written stuffs about like very, very cheeky kind of works also. You get to see an example of the whole idea of him talking about the periodic table and stuff like that. One of his slam championship competition he attended years ago, and he has also talked about love and a couple of other things. But he's very, very serious. Like, it's like he's able to pick up things you ordinarily can see and just come to represent it to you and give it the voice you ordinarily need. And it leads me asking, how did you come about fix the politics, and how did you come about DK?
I think if I let me try to remember exactly when that was. It was okay. I wrote about this. I wrote about this in my tribute to Professor Chike Okoye. I don't know if you read that. I wrote about
Yeah, yeah, I did.
yes. That was the first time I heard of Dike, and that time it was as young powerful poets. We came amongst them in that gathering, and it was actually in honor of Tanwil Jai, Professor Tanwil Jai. So when we got to that meeting, we were just there doing our thing. And after performing, Professor Queen, Chike Queen called and just gave me a signal and said something. He gave me tons of verse, right? So I didn't know he still had me in mind. It was towards the end of the meeting that he just met me and was like, have you heard of Dike Chukwumerije? Yeah, I know they're like, no, I have not. They're okay, no problem. When he said that, it was like a seed sown, right? You have to check that guy out. So I went online and I checked and I was like, I've seen a lot. This guy has done this, he has a lot of this. So this guy, so there's somebody who has done much on this that I'm trying to do. Oh, man, I have to follow this guy up. So I started investigating him, seeing that he's a very quiet soul. He's not that, the personality he portrays on stage is very different from his person in real life. So, but he's just that cool human being. And I just noticed that, okay, this is somebody I should actually emulate, right? So let me just go in the order he has already set for us, let's say. So one day came, I was in Abba then still 7, and I noticed that the Abba Poetry Club then, I had to just join them. And they told us that we were going to have Dike come over for a particular event and things like that. And that was just about the period I joined them. I was so excited as man, I have to be a part of this. So in their planning, and many kudos to Happy Prince. They call him Happy Princes. He was formerly the president of the White Culture Club, who is now based in Abuja. A fine
Yeah, yeah.
You know him, right? Happy Prince.
And Prince is like, he's on his own realm. He's like there, like man is there, like like, yeah, the musings of a madman. Happy Prince is on his own realm, doing his own stuff. And
Prince. When I told him I was interested in joining the Abba Poetry Club, the first time we met somewhere along, I've forgotten the place, but somewhere along St. Michael's or so.
St. Matthew, is it Cemetery Road? If it's Cemetery Road, then it's St. Matthew, I think so. Yeah.
We stayed for about 30 minutes, and this guy, for the first time seeing me, listened to me. And also, that guy, see, for the first time I saw that somebody like this can listen to somebody like me and still remain very on point, sharing his ideas. I respected it from that moment. So from that moment, he carried me along. He was just showing me around, telling me one or two whatever expectations he had of the Abba Poetry Club. So when Dike finally came, I saw the man, the myth, the legend, the person, right? He just came and this guy was looking macho. I said, wait, what's going on here? He has this beauty about him that looks like who has gone to the gym many times. Like, okay.
He's a sportsman. He's a sportsman. He's a national champion also. So Taekwondo. I think, yeah, the family did a whole lot of stuff. You said? I didn't get you.
The brother went to the Olympics and won.
Yeah. The brother is an Olympian. The family is a family of champions. They did a whole lot of stuff while they were young.
So I met with him that day after his encouragement, the word he gave to the children who were around, and also the Lord that he said and he gave out that day. I had to find my way to take a picture of him. I still have that picture. I posted once upon a time. So I took that picture, just a selfie, and humble looking human being, just and he gave me and I told him I sent you a friend request and I've not got any feedback, and he said no problem, I will accept it, just send me a message on messenger. I said no wahala, and this guy was giving me every vibe I would expect of somebody I should follow. He was humble, He wasn't resistant to, how some celebrities are, when they come around them, they don't give you that energy and space.
You won't feel the whole idea of the celebrity push when you're around Dike, or if you come to have access on come to have contact with him. And sometimes you feel you're almost abusing too much, but then he lets you know that you've not even touched half of what you ordinarily should be touching.
Of course, you think you're overstepping your boundaries, but it still gives you that open arms. Like, it makes you understand that, okay, yeah, so is there anything you want to ask? Okay, yes, sir. Okay, and this, blah, 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 blah. Then you're like, am I not doing so much now? But he was very receptive. So I took the picture and I told him what I told him. He said he was going to accept it. So just imagine I had to send a message. He checked and accepted. And there's one thing about it. If you tell him anything, so, oh, you're welcome, my brother. There's a way he says it, my brother. It makes you feel. It makes you feel like family. Indeed, man. I really I respect that guy. I honor him. I want to use the word love him. I really do. I cherish that person a lot. So when it came to the point where I started consuming a lot of his works, or should I say patronizing a lot of the things he has put out there, I then discovered that particular moment that he put out. I can see here that it was on the eighth day of October 2021. He just put out Fix the Politics. Okay. I looked at it. But something in me was like, no, man, this thing is not just page poetry. This is something that I feel is written to be performed. So I was like, okay, let me try. So I sent him a message. I just said, please, is it possible that I, do something on this? He said, no problem, my brother. No yawa. I can remember what it is. He said, no yawa. I know what, let's go into this. So I did so. Now that was the first video I did, and I knew that I put in a lot of creativity. That is, I needed it to be like something very wonderful. I put in a lot of time to developing the graphics or whatever it is. It's quite simple, but it took a lot for me to text in that format it went.
Sure.
What happened
And
was
just to
that
cut you, okay.
yes,
Just to like cut you short down, there's no way I know almost his major works by heart, but whenever I get to places like when an ambulance carries a woman, there's the sound you added there that ordinarily comes into my head and it sticks to that particular place. And then when I get to the place where politicians in office hold the farm and the seed, you get to hear, let the eyes have it, let the nails. So it's like now, like there. And then when I get to the point where I have to talk about a vehicle somersaults, it's the effects come to my head and I get to like there's I don't miss it. I don't miss it for almost any other reason. I just have to also say that sometimes to kickstart my mood on a camera, I just go by one of his works. His works or the works of Theodore Roosevelt, they've come very, very handy to me. They put me in check. Like I don't say testing the microphone. I'm like a broken road does not understand Igbo, and I'm testing them. That's my testing the microphone, and I get back to myself before I now continue what I want to say.
those effects were very necessary too, because I was thinking to myself, should I just read through the words or just try to see how to give life to? Because that is one of the essence of actually putting or performing a work, right? You must understand that even if I'm trying to give life with my voice, every means I have to actually also put more life to this piece must also be introduced. So I downloaded a lot of sounds from YouTube. I got many backgrounders and what's it called? Instrumentals also to also help. That particular bass line, I felt that was just necessary. We have I felt it to create
Baba,
that.
you cook.
I felt to create that serious atmosphere. So it was a look like God from England. I just introduced him to that. It brought the life I needed, and I felt that man, I've done something wonderful, right? It made me of like what like many things I've done. So after doing them, I'm like, this should go far. This should go far. But sometimes we are disappointed, but this should go far. So when I finished, I uploaded on Facebook. Tagged it, but for almost 2 days, I didn't get any feedback. And even from my end, the responses were very poor. And I couldn't, what's going on? Was it that actually a poor production? Is it that it makes sense? Was it that it doesn't make sense? I was just asking a lot of random questions to myself. And it seemed as if I was just being discouraged. But at the time I was being discouraged. But I wanted to pull it down. Maybe I didn't do something right. I didn't do it well. So the first thing I did was to Before pulling it down, I had to message Happy Prince, stand up for that man. Stand up for that man. When I did on WhatsApp, it was like, I thought, what's going on? I said that I did a piece for Dike. Tagged him, but he did not respond. And I maybe was wondering maybe the work was bad. And that was why he didn't respond. So I really want to get it. I was just thinking too much, right? So when I told him that, he was like, no, 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 I don't think he has seen it. I said, let me see, let me see. He said, send it to me. So when I sent it to him, that prince saw the piece, the production. He was like, oh, this thing is wonderful. I think he has not seen it. I will send it to him. Governor, when this guy sent it to DK, DK saw it and immediately DK, I think he sent him a message and he screenshotted and sent to him that he said, I'm sorry, I didn't see this. No problem, I will get our feedback. That was when peace came upon my heart. Like, okay, maybe I didn't do nonsense after. So I was like, okay, no problem. So it went on the ground that he did not just even send, he didn't send me any message. The next thing I saw was my video on his platform. And man, that thing blew my mind. Like, whoa, so this guy went up.
Let me blow your mind also. He posted it. He posted it on WhatsApp. Yeah, it was from his WhatsApp status I moved before I went to see it on Facebook.
So
yeah, so it's like
I felt that point of performance or the piece in itself was carrying a particular body of instructing Nigerians on the way forward. If you must experience this change that we all desire, fix the politics. It is quite a striking message, but at the same time, it was heartfelt. You can't listen to Dike and not feel it in your heart. And that's one thing that is different about his art. Mind you, you can't listen to Dike and just maybe commonize all he has said. No, it is deeper than even the words can carry.
Of course.
When he went to the economic summit, he was invited in Abuja when he did the wall and
Oh my
preach.
God.
Man, that performance was out of this world.
It's like he just comes, you see him very, very simple, and then he sits down. I was just like, you feel this community and you feel where you belong. And you see DK mounts the stage and it tells you a politician in office ordinarily should be doing what he should be doing. Said nothing kills us effectively as a politician in high office with low mentality. Politicians in office with minds in London, perpetual latecomers to every meeting, irritated by anyone with a different opinion. Who see the people as a throne to sit on? Tell me, how can't you be in love with what you are listening?
He used the lines of as politicians in office who do not pay salaries, whose
Yeah.
responsibilities is bigger SUVs, who set up committees and publish white papers, presiding over affairs that never improve. The reality.
Is that not Nigeria? And he's not just speaking like speaking about what is happening now. He's speaking also from the realms of someone like Achebe. Achebe in his wrote The Trouble with Nigeria. But every single thing that man said in that particular work has come to survive the test of time 40 plus years later by just that simple caption. The trouble with Nigeria is simply and squarely a failure of leadership. There's nothing wrong with the Nigerian air. There's nothing wrong with the Nigerian water. Just a failure of leadership. Just a failure of leadership. And so, if we had to push forward, if we had to take it up from here, we've talked about the role of creatives and ordinarily what they should do and how things ordinarily should go. And many persons are arguing at the moment that there's a boom to literary festivals in Nigeria. Within the Nigerian context, you can say a boom. But from where I stand, I don't want to say it that way. I know how many festivals I've attended this year, or how many conferences, rather, let me put it that way. There's one I'm attending next month at Odessa in Poland, and it's like for 6 days, and it's like in and about just like camping kind of stuff. You move out of society, like it normally happens during the summer. The whole lot of stuff that happens during the summer is like you just go to, they have forests designated for stuff like that, and then they have those type of stuff go down there. What do you think people should be spending their money on? Like, things like grant, things like community centers. DK just started a civic center recently, over a year now. Do we have that enough? where you stay, is there a public library? Is there a need for a public library? And what do you think ordinarily can be done differently that at the moment has not been done? Bearing in mind that most of the persons outside come to get exposed through books from these public libraries. Someone like the lives of Ben, if you read the works of Ben Carson, you come to see that particular reality of what public library also can also do. If you look at the life and the works of J.D. Vance in his this thing, Hillybilly Elegy, you come to see where he talked about what the mom's influence to him and the public library ordinarily comes short of. How do you reconcile all of this in a country whereby the national library up until next year would not be completed? I know I'm speaking about the future. I'm not talking about just the past. I'm talking about up until next year. So it's like I am willing to commit a fallacy here, but I'm saying up until next year the library will not be ready, and the library is almost 20 years, or I don't even know how long now they have been built. The guy opposite the national mosque.
I think, I was try to speak on the festival also. Let's say something about the library. Here in Delta State, we have several libraries, but they are in a bad shape, right? Let's put it like that. They are not in the shape that would actually encourage people to go there and spend their time. Uh, Very poor lighting systems around, and you find that even provisions for convenience too is another problem there. So they are really
Yeah,
developed and not raised to the standards that you actually can help promote them for public use or so. So the problem really is with the fact that the government really doesn't pay attention to anything that's like you said, I'm taking the risk of also committing that fallacy. That they don't also invest into anything that promotes education. They can tell you on the surface level that they are doing that, they are trying to do that. Even go to our universities and go to the universities that their library should be well funded. I'm not talking about those local public community libraries. Go to the universities that you should have standards in library settings and formats and whatever structure. You go there and also experience some form of deterioration, some form of lack of many amenities that should, or infrastructure that should show that this is a standard library. It just recently in Delso that they have an e-library that is kind of well built. Delta State University, the governor, yes, to his praise, I'm saying this to his praise, someone invested a lot into that library. And I believe the school and TED Fund too, they did a lot for that library. And it's doing very well, everything computerized, right? So they have a physical library that is doing well and well, but they have a structure too that is for e-library. So somehow the government is not fully investing into that, which we know has helped people in time past, like the likes of Ashebezi, Wole Soyinka, Christopher Kipo. Some of them came in contact with certain knowledge that improved their style of writing by going to the library. I believe that Christopher Kipo became a modernist writer, yes, an African modernist writer, even Wole Soyinka became such writers because they read the likes of Ezra Pound, the T.S. Eliot, the W.B. Yeats, and some other writers like that, that modernist era. The thing is that if we do not have such things on ground and in place, you may actually find more people going far away from everything that can make them educated enough to become the world changers we expect of them. We must provide certain provision, put certain provisions on ground so people can work with it becoming. For instance, I complained of this earlier. There is no constant power supply. What do you want to do? On a generator that will make noise that better pass my neighbor near a library that you are supposed to be thinking without any noise. You get the point. So there are several factors that is actually going to impede whatever it is that you want to create this for or whatever it is. So the thing is, we need much investment. We need people to actually see that there's a need for that structure to be improved on. Several facilities should be put on ground, and also the librarians, many of them, we don't want to even talk about attitude issues. Some of them discourage you from even approaching that place.
I remember my experience in Calabar. I lived in Ibadan for some time. I lived also in Calabar and in Aba. So I consider myself cosmopolitan because I've spent my time in the different parts of the country. But I know what you're talking about. I can feel it. Like I know that attitude, the face stuff, you don't even have toilets to ordinarily get to use if you want to like really ease yourself after studying for some time, and it's dusty. There are no recent books. The books are like the ones left by our colonial leaders or the guys in the military era, and so it's a lot of stuff, and yeah.
It's a lot, it's a lot. But one thing I must also say too, like I made reference to those who actually the school and through TechFund and some other, what do I call it, some institutions use the e-library with proper e-facilities or whatever it is they brought around to actually make that work. I also believe that there are some institutions that are maybe not within my knowledge right now that are also doing the same, right? So
Sure,
we must also
people are trying to do things, yeah.
yeah, so we can also point to that too. But generally, people are not like before encouraged to use the library. But we can also point to some factors too. The internet, right? So why are people going to use the library when you can build an archive or whatever it is on your phone, right? You can have several books put in different shelves on your because we have e-shelves right now. You can place many books there for you to read from time to time. Or you need access to some sites where you can get books for free or download for free. You have many of them online. You have the PDF drives, and many of them you can get resources to actually help yourself through school. So the thing is that there are several factors actually making this not be the way it should be, especially the internet. People are not encouraged to even go to physical locations to read when they can do that in their rooms or in their homes. So that is also one thing that discourages the use of library. But let's go back to festivals. The thing is this, we are happy. Thank God you pointed to the fact that compared to what is obtainable outside this country, what we call or celebrate as festivals or the strings of festivals here is like nothing compared to what it should be like. I said in one of the things I wrote, the paper I wrote for Brito Papers, in the kind of reporting sort of what Graciano Warenwright, what he did as a theatre tour. I was trying to also advocate for that particular fact that we must go back to that tradition of performance we had in Africa at the time. Year in, year out, several communities, several localities, they were constantly involved in festivals and several forms of art, display of arts, not just festivals, but several forms of it, maybe little scale or big scales, whatever it is. At the time, people were heavily doing that from community to community, even for the UG. The people at the time, you see that this community will come in competition with this community, and what they even do, they take a year-long rehearsal and preparation for them to meet and also do or stay in competition. Whoever wins in that competition becomes like the one crown with that respect. Then it goes to the next year. Communities also try to see how to improve on their arts, so to compete and become a better community who is more creative and better performers or so. So we can only continue to encourage these forms of creativity and involvement in arts when we have people who are willing to invest. Number one, invest in time and in cash. I kid you not, I have organized festivals before. It's not easy to come by. It's not really something you can just easily put together. You need finances to put those things together.
Yeah,
And it's
sure.
not see, it's when I say it's not really easy, it's not really easy at all. So you need the moral support, you need the financial support, you need help from other people. And some of these things you don't get around here. And you talk
Yeah,
about grants. We don't really have access to a lot of grants here. Some of us have to we sought for these grants outside Nigeria. And when we get them, then we bring the research or whatever it is we have to do here, do our reports and submit back to them to prove to them that indeed we did what they expected of us.
yeah,
You get the point. So it's not really something that the government is still encouraging or is encouraging of big personalities. And thank God we are in sort of the capitalist society. We have several billionaires. We
yeah,
the Dangotes, the Otedola, and call their names, right? And they need to, and I want to plead if they can help, if God helping us that they get access to this information, invest into the arts. It's a fertile ground. But when I say fertile ground, it don't come with the intention to come and make more money.
sure.
Just come and invest into a practice that is African, that keeps us all alive. It gives us it leaves us with a what's it called now, a connection to our respective identities and communal living. You know, our traditions, our cultures, our norms, our value system. The more you invest into culture, the more you invest into art, you actually revive a form of a communal living that helps the human condition improve. Sorry, even when you are in a locality, you are in a village. If you invest into art, I kid you not, you will see more people investing their time into that which they believe is something that they relate with than even going to urban areas to populate urban areas with whatever it is they are coming to do there or to gain from there.
Of course.
So it's I just hope investment coming. But I will also commend the festivals already on ground. I thank God for the Abuja Literary Society that's constantly every year doing what they're doing. I thank God for Life as the Lagos International Poetry Festival. Thank God for
Sure, sure.
I thank God for the Port Harcourt Festival, so Poetry Festival, and that was another powerful one. And there's I'm trying to remember us all scattered around the country. Thank you. Even the about poetry, and also the one that just concluded in the UK. That's the Benway.
Yeah, the Benway, yeah.
So I thank God for these guys who are putting in time to see how to promote the arts through these festivals. It's something worth commending, right? And
Yeah.
the president of the ALS, now the Abuja Literary Society, I know you know in Abash, Amuneni or
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I
I
know,
see
I know.
what he's trying to introduce a lot. I've just read through some of his expectations, and he's
The
somebody I
recent 2025 open mic stuff like that.
so it's promising to do a lot. So yes, a lot for us to do in the aspect of festivals, and I'm hopeful that much is to come. Much is to come.
I just hope that we come to find a way around these conversations, because we have what I don't want to call a market, but we have the market. We're here more than 10 years now. We are still shouting 200 million people, 200 million people. We don't even know how many we are in that country.
Not
The
too
last
hard.
time that the last time they talked about a census here, we know how many billions was already cutted where it ordinarily went to, and almost nobody can really account for that. We have the market if we ordinarily come to have our children ordinarily do what they're supposed to do. And like you said, without the arts, without literacy, without granting people the chance to connect with their head, pastors can shout from now till next year. If the foundation has been so scattered and shattered, what would a just man now do in the old age? The age ordinarily you were supposed to catch these people and then give them a transformation and give them a better life. They tend to lose it because, no matter how upright you ordinarily are, you live within a particular country. You do business with people that ordinarily didn't come to get the same access to quality thought and thinking process like you. And the art can ordinarily point us to that particular reality. You find someone again like Darwin still tell us why I stopped hating Shakespeare. I don't know if that's how he said in one of he writes the way he writes, and the essays he comes to put up with, he just said nothing. He can just wake up tomorrow and title a work "Nothing Serious, Nothing Personal," and it's already a book for him. And he goes on thinking. And so in this particular work, he was saying why I no longer hate Shakespeare. He was like, he felt Shakespeare was talking about things from a very, very abstract standpoint, where they were not real humans. They were like just these mythic figures. But he was like, when Caesar was killed and the situation down there, he said he read it once again, and there's a particular line I can't remember now, but it's a line that goes along this line that from now into the future, more deaths will come in similar way to the death of Caesar. I can't remember. It wasn't Antonio talking, neither was it Brutus, but I can't remember who the character now was. But you see that he allowed this particular stuff to come to have a human face in and about his encounter through mythic tales told by one of the greatest down there. And we can come to do better. And like you said, also getting money is not just keeping in the bank. We also as a people have that problem of wanting to invest. We like the idea of seeing money. We like to see the numbers in our bank accounts. We like to see that, oh, I have 5 million in my account and I have it cash.
Just
If
for
I
the
need
fun
it
of it.
tomorrow, just for the
Of course,
fun of it.
He did that once. He said he went to the bank and he went there to ask for about $10 million or whatever.
Yeah, you mean Dangote, right? Yeah, I
I'm
watched
telling
the
you,
interview too.
so when before you find it, okay, right now you know. And that's a typical, that's a typical Nigerian or African mentality.
If we touch a little bit on religion and how ordinarily it has come to be perceived in a place like Nigeria nowadays. I'm a Christian. I'm a practicing Christian. I'm in church every day and I'm unapologetic about that. I respect the African culture. I respect everything, but it doesn't make me less a Christian or make me less an African. What do you see with this current trend of people saying, let's go back to our roots? But before that, can you also like touch a bit on the abuses that comes from the Christian quarters? We don't really almost know what happens within the Islamic fold because of language barriers and stuff like that. But from where we are very familiar with, can you touch a bit on the abuses and the problems that ordinarily originates from this uncensored and unbridled advocacy for going back to the roots without context?
I think the word is simply disillusionment because many persons came to the point where they started losing interest in church. It came to that point because of certain experiences or expectations they had and how it didn't come. I think I had an experience recently. A young man came to me and he was like, and something sometimes too, it's as a result of ignorance. You come to such conclusions, right? And also you blame this on them and also and whoever taught them scriptures, whoever exposed them to the Bible. Because some teachers of the Bible expose them to that kind of Jesus that's the provider of all, that must give you all you expect, and whatever it is you need of him, he will grant it, no matter what you ask, he will give you. Understand that we have a lot of signs or signals of that. So you understand in scriptures that's where Jesus said, ask because you have not asked, ask that your joy will be full. Quite all right. But people tend to take advantage of such scriptures and verses to emphasize a point that actually sell their own feed in order to extort these people. So when these people have certain expectations and they are not met, then they begin to question this Jesus you sold to them, right? This Jesus that provides everything. Now I'm expecting of him, it is not giving me anything. So this young man I met was simply kind of retracing his steps from Christianity, saying he's now more like a traditionalist. I was like, come on, man, what happened? Talk to me. Yeah, this was a waste of time. See, what you said is time. I think
Goodness.
no, he said this was a waste of time. I don't know what to tell you because that actually left me. It was a strange experience. I'd never gotten or got that kind of experience or that kind of response from anybody when I asked that kind of question. Like, why are you not much of a Christian than what you've been or what you used to be? The next thing that
Sharp, sharp.
we started talking and it came to the point where it was like, you see, I don't suffer, I don't pray, I don't do this one, the key. And we see, like I'm trying to make this balance very carefully. We see that many churches organize programs, and the types of such programs or the themes of such programs is use him and let him go. The devil that holds my finances must die. The family, something. I understand. I'm trying to be very careful with what I'm saying because
Sure,
I have
sure.
a feeling that understand that okay, I believe these things too, but there's a balance I'm trying to make. So
Yeah, of
when
course I do.
you sell this idea to these people and what they expect of it doesn't come to pass, over time they become very discouraged to continue. And many of these self-acclaimed or whatever it is they call themselves, agnostic skeptics and atheists today, they want people who had expectations of God. And mind you, their conclusions on the fact that there is no God really is not because there isn't any God, but because of their disappointment in God. Ask many of them. Their conclusions always come to that if there is God, why then this? Why is it that people suffer like this? Why must we go to this extent to get this? Then you begin to question whatever foundation they had about this God, whatever belief system actually has been that shapes their mind about God, their worldview about God. Then you begin to see problems with their concept of God and whoever God is to them. So
Yeah.
it's a problem with Pentecostals where they begin to sell these ideas. And like I told you, not like I told you, scripture says this again and again that judgment must first begin even in
The
God's
house
house.
of it. Yeah.
So there are a lot of people that have taken advantage of young men and women in the circle of Christianity, and such people are even continuing in such acts, not wanting to repent. Such people will surely face the judgment because it's because of such people many people left the faith, and because of such people too, many people have gone to writing in a way to question everything about our belief system. There are many writers today who are continually selling the ideas of humanism as against Christianity, emphasizing the sufficiency of man for man and man by himself to survive without any external figure, no metaphysical relationships, nothing connecting to the abstract or whatever it is. You are self sufficient. You can do all in all. You are your Alpha, you are your Omega. And subtly and very convincingly, they put it in literature, they put it in poetry, and they begin to sell it to a generation that have not come to know God for themselves. So if your first, what do I call it? That if your first encounter
Encounter.
with the idea of God is somebody telling you that the God that people believe in is fake or is non-existent, is this one or that one, then you begin to have such a mentality so that in case you come in contact with somebody who's trying to even preach to you about this God, you are discouraging the idea. Why? Because you begin to sell what you've learned. So, in all, I believe that we first of all, like within us, we have to really create a system. And I believe that's what some persons are doing, but there's also an extreme to it where you are not trying to correct fathers. In quotes, I'm saying that because there are people who are not trying to go to the extent that instead of correction with simplicity, they correct with abuses. Like there was a time we brought up a matter about is this Suleiman or Deboye? We were just trying to
Yeah,
critique
yeah.
him.
Was it Suleiman? I was talking about the whole idea of is it by location or teleporting and
Yeah, you have your reasons for interrogating that, right?
yeah,
Now,
yeah,
when we begin to say some extremes, although to a large extent, if you ask me about that situation, which we can
yeah,
agree to disagree, there are situations whereby certain things like that happen in scriptures. Then the
yeah,
question we
yeah.
ask was he teleported to where the Ethiopian eunuch was?
Sure.
So if in that situation, really, if it happens in scripture, what makes it impossible in our time? Then we begin to go back to the question of some sects in Christianity now saying that whatever it is that happened in scriptures and the miracles that happened in scriptures was for scriptures and not for our time. It all ended there. That's another argument. So even within
Yeah.
us,
What are
there's a
we now doing? What are we now doing in the 21st century?
that this system, there's a confusion that is even confusing you. You get the point. So we have to understand that in the society, we have a role to play. But there's also the problem with the fact that yes, some people are saying that these things don't happen now. They should not be emphasized now. What should be emphasized is just this or that and the rest. And then, like I told you, it then begins to show that there's a problem even amongst us, within us. This
Sure. Yeah.
confusion, the
Of
confusion
doctrine
begins.
and what ordinarily should be believed and
So the unbeliever is just looking at us playing our let's say, selling our confusion because somehow we come to the internet space to people do this argument. This one will tell you that this is for this, that will tell you that no, that one is for that time, no, we can see perform miracles now. And then there's also the problem of certain kind, and I kid you not, the fake prophets are making matters worse. There are people who arrange these miracles, obviously. There are people who arrange these miracles, but also there are people who have actually performed real miracles.
yeah.
So if there is this divide between understanding which is which and which we should we believe in and the rest of that, it tends to affect the people who ordinarily should be looking at, you understand, the religion as a way of escape, of a way of entering into even sanity or whatever it is. But I also want to say this too, that at a time we must also agree, that religion of any kind, be it Muslim, Islam, Christianity, or traditional belief systems or so, have actually helped our society become more saner than it should be without these things.
Of course. I agree. I agree.
Because
I agree.
I think somebody came and said if it's possible, he will cancel all the churches in Nigeria, turn them to industries, blah, blah, blah. I was then thinking, I wanted to interrogate that simply by saying that, do you know that these places you want to shut down, blah, 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 because of whatever, that's an argument of Peter Obi, because he made a statement like that about all night. I'm talking about this guy, MC Lively, who made that
Yeah,
statement that
yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Then my question to him really was the fact that, do you understand that churches and whatever they do there have actually become, I won't call them asylums, I'm very careful, but they have become institutions that actually house people, like the cave of Adullam, where weak people come into, refine their lives, refine themselves, get better at a particular skill, then go back into society with what they've learned to impact society, live better lives, moral lives, live with values, live with certain expectations, and do not add more problems to whatever it is that is being experienced in society. That is
I
what
agree.
churches, you
I
understand,
agree with
ordinary.
you. I agree with you. Of course. Like I am a Catholic. I was raised a Catholic. I have experience of Protestantism and experience of Pentecostalism also. I have talked to people from different faiths and different belief systems, of the Buddhist tradition to the Orthodox tradition to Pentecostal tradition to Muslims and to different sects of persons and to Jews. I have friends who belong to these sects. And just draw a bit from my Catholic upbringing, you look at the whole idea of the Caritas during the war, during the Biafra War. You saw the aid they ordinarily brought down there. There's barely any country at the moment where you go and you will not find the Caritas organization, which ordinarily translates to love. Around the world, they're everywhere, and people tend to turn a blind eye to this particular stuff. People tend to shut their eyes to the many schools managed by, from the excellence done by Deeper Life high schools around the country to that of the Dominican schools in different parts, to the Jesuits in different places. People tend to turn their eyes from hospitals managed by the church, managed by religious bodies, and say, the church is doing this, the church is doing. But when you ask them to give you concrete argument as it concerns what the church ordinarily is doing to ordinarily keep the people stagnated, they point you down to industry. And when they point you down to industry, they fail to understand that they are trying to be as Marxist, not just even Marxist, they're trying to be as capitalistic as possible. So when you become that capitalistic, you're thinking everything is about industry. What does the typical core classical capitalism does? If we're going to go by what Marx will get to critique, Marx will critique these guys by saying, okay, you get to be employed by somebody. He keeps the large chunk of the capital and the proceeds that come from it. You survive on bare minimum. You're just thinking about yourself, about food. They shut down the churches. Where will your sense of morality come from? Where will your sense of conscience come from? Where will your sense of community and togetherness come from? Where will your sense of justice come from? And you're talking about Nigeria, whereby if you take away religion and you take away the church and you take away the sense of guilt and you take away the sense of people coming to be responsible for the deeds they have done in the past, people are going to be worse. Whether you are going back to the traditional ways of worship, you come to see the sense of punishment when you do something wrong. Whether you are going by the way of Ogun, or you are going by the way of Orisha, or you are going by the way of Ani, or you are going by the ways of the different stuff we've come down to hold, you still see that we come back to the same stuff. Two things can coexist side by side. The industries can be there, and the church can be there. One must not go away for the other one to come.
I think that is a problem they are having. I don't know where they get this idea from that the church has to go for industry to rise. The question I want to ask anybody who has that mindset is, what really is stopping people from making or creating industries? Is it really the church? Because there are a lot of people that are not going to church that should ordinarily be building these industries, right? They
But
don't
they
even believe
don't.
in God. So why then are you questioning that? Okay, you are thinking that the people who should be creative with their minds have been actually put in that setting, and somehow whatever they are teaching blocks their minds from actually being creative or whatever. But that's also a lie in itself.
What
Who told you
about
that?
what about those whose minds have not been blocked? What about those who have never gone to church?
To make the excuse that they may be the most creative ones are in church, right? The ones who have their potentials. They want
But
to have
isn't that now the problem, that if the most creative ones are in church, it shows that they're ordinarily supposed to be in church? Because if the ones who are not creative are in the world, if the ones that are not creative are in the world, what are they doing there? They should come and get some creativity.
I think one of the arguments is that, and I think what you were saying something just now that struck a chord. Some of the argument is that okay, the creative ones are in the church and they should be creative, but they are not being creative because of what they are hearing. They think that whatever they are preaching about heaven and hell is so much of fantasy that they don't tend to invest in this earth because there's a war that is coming, right? So they are not being like, okay, you are being indoctrinated to think in this way because whatever is of this world is vain or it doesn't end anywhere. It will be destroyed when Armageddon comes. So you are not being advised to not invest in this world. Why? Because you're expecting a new world, which God is the king and God is the creator of that particular world. So, but the point I was trying to make, and also make here is simple. The point is not about these creative people not doing what they have to do. The point is they are, many of them, doing what they have to do. They are creating, but you are not looking to the problem of the lack of enabling environment for them to thrive. Is it the church that stopped you from starting that business you had so much vigor to start? When you wanted to start it, all of a sudden, you didn't have enough to run generator. You didn't have enough to pay bills. You didn't have enough to do this or do that or that. And so you were discouraged by a lot of factors. And to even gain your sanity, the best place you could even go to was a church. And you have to cry because you know God is the only person that can help you in that situation. So you are not pointing to the problem of understanding that the church in itself is only sustaining, and I'm saying that the church, whatever the church does and whatever we do as Christians transcends this, but I'm also saying that as a result, the church helps us to maintain our sanity. It helps us to maintain sanity. I kid you not, there should be a lot of mad people walking the streets of Nigeria as a result of frustration. Ordinarily, when you're in Nigeria, have you not seen a frustrated man walking and talking on his own?
Why not?
Frustrated and walking about the street and lamenting. I saw a video of a man who came out to his compound and put his hands on his cheek and was thinking deeply. The man was just there, nodding and wow. I'm laughing at this, but it's serious. They lament over a lot. So indeed, when they hear the gospel message of Christ and the hope of glory, and also the ways we can live as human beings, as a community, as a people hoping for heaven, they begin to make sense of life. And mind you too, the church and Christianity and some sense to religion helps man create meaning to life.
Yeah.
The
Cannot take it
existentialist
away.
otherwise.
You cannot take that away. It's not possible. It's
Some people don't believe that. They believe you can make it up for yourself, create meanings for yourself, which is the existential point of view.
But then what is the existentialist claim apart from lamenting man's debasing Hobbesian state and the cruelty that ordinarily is man's life? I was talking to a professor a few days ago and we were striking chords about existentialism, and she happened to be a professor of philosophy, and she said to me, she's like, young man, I hope you ordinarily, I believe by now you should have been able to come to the realization that there's a plan. There's a plan and there's a mission for ordinarily just positing man as atoms, as positing man as in and about everything here, and then that's all. And when that is successfully done, things like commitment in relationships and love and language and meaning and trust would ordinarily die, because you come to look at things from the point of benefit, from the point of there are no consequences to things. We're just here for 30, 40 years. If we die, we're not going to see anybody. There's in and about this clamor to just reduce everything to the neuroscience and reduce man to just this reactor to molecules and atoms and stuff like that. I'm like, of course, that's true. It's true. If you bring it down to religion also, you get to see, like you rightly asked, what is stopping those who spend all their time in Toscana, those who spend all their time in the different clubs carrying out the hookup girls to build the so-called industries? What is stopping them from ordinarily doing the things they're ordinarily supposed to do? As opposed to, coming down here. And we have we have too much land in Nigeria. I don't think we have land compared to Russia. Russia is the largest country by land mass, but we have land. There's enough land that can take whatever industry you want to do. And you don't have to build industries in where people live. Industry should be in industrial layouts. And every state should ordinarily have plans for industrial layout. And if they have been placed mapped out for industrial layout, can we go to those places and see whether churches and mosques have been built on industrial layouts? And then we now say, okay, now you have to bulldoze that. It's on the wrong green. The green plan is not right. But unfortunately, it's not there, or they are not. Churches are not in those places. Mosques are not in those places. If we're to go by showing guys advocacy also for shrines also are not there. Those things are not in those places. So what is really stopping us? Back to what you said. The enabling environment has not been really given. The enabling environment have not been championed. And people think these things are in isolation. But they aren't. They are all connected. Like you said, look at how many persons that would have ordinarily lost their mind. You know, the whole idea of having hope. I'm not saying everybody should have that kind of hope, but not everybody have the capacity for certain deep philosophical or theological discussions of coming to have serious hope. I do tell people my mom is a Christian. My mom goes to church every day. My mom knows nothing about predestination. She knows nothing about eschatology. She knows nothing about the G's and the Zms, but she knows one thing. She knows that thing alone, and she knows that she can pray. And each time she calls me, she's like, I've committed your life into God. I've given you to Him. Whatever you are doing, if it's in literature, if it's in church advocacy, whatever you're doing, just know that me and my God. She talks as if they're having this one-on-one conversation. You know the way our African moms talk. You know, please know where you are from. Don't betray us. And I am who I am today because of my church background. I am who I am today because my mom, at a very, very young age, took me to church. I don't know the experiences many other persons had, and I'm not trying to downplay the experience. I'm not trying to downplay what the ordinary had and stuff like that. But I grew up in a house where I was in church for like 4 times in a week. At least I should be in church up to 4 times a week if it's morning mass or service or whatsoever. And we had the deeper life directly opposite us. I have a cousin who is currently a deeper lifer, and her husband, and she just moved. She's like, I like the culture, but I think I'm cool with this guy. So she just crossed. She started by, we go for mass, and then she just said, I'm going to the other side. And now she's married to a deeper life pastor and all that. And there's virtue in this stuff. We cannot throw everything all out. And like you said also, our pastors should do better. I know the fakes are there and everything. There's always those guys there, but you should know better. I give an example. We, two of us, will share Dike's poem one way or the other. We'll share his works. Just imagine tomorrow I come and do a poor rendition of Dike's work. Will you blame Dike for not writing his work well? Or will you blame me for not doing the work well? So, yeah, you see God, you see his creation, you see the fault in his creation, and you leave the fault from his creation to attack the person who wasn't ordinarily involved. If tomorrow I am to sing this thing, Blowing in the Wind, and I don't render it, I know this thing, Bob also doesn't really have the voice of a singer, though. Whatever a singer really means, just imagine I come to do it worse than he has already done it. Will you blame Bob or will you blame me? You should blame me for doing a bad job. But people, so leaving me
Because
to go and blame Bob.
Paul actually make his work better than he has done.
I attended a translated version of all his songs in Poland. I think I told you this. Was it last year or so, or early this year? It was way better. It was way better than his live performance I've attended once or so. So you come to understand that nobody wakes up and says, okay, Bob doesn't know how to sing. He doesn't know how to write. You blame me. So pushing it, leaving the government that ordinarily should do what they're supposed to do, leaving the problems of the society to come and clamp down on people's sense of freedom. That's if we even want to believe people are free and they have the freedom of expression. You think you are free enough to ordinarily not be a Christian, to be an atheist. What's stopping you from just holding your peace? Why do you want to drag me in? Why do you want to co-opt me into this particular stuff? And I think it's a thing people ordinarily also should come to look at. The fact that your expectations, like my brother Karo has said, has not been met by God, probably because of your preacher or pastors blowing out of natural proportions. Because the idea of a miracle is supposed to be the idea of a miracle. It's supposed to be an extraordinary act. But when you go to church and every day people want a miracle to happen every day, it loses the sense of the extraordinary. It becomes the ordinary. And in doing that, and if it doesn't happen, people lose faith. So also preachers also should bear in mind that whatsoever they are trying to do, they also should bring themselves under the Spirit of God, under the Spirit of the word to ordinarily come to understand. And we also talked about deeper life to a large extent the last time. And I'm saying, people are saying, oh, Kumuye said this in times past. But what do you prefer? You prefer somebody who sticks to a particular idea throughout a particular generation and refuses to change even when he thinks things can get better? Or will you appreciate more somebody who is willing to say, you know what, in the time I got this, in the times I got this particular revelation and stuff like this, it was like this. But times are changing and things are happening. If we're to borrow from Bob, times are changing. And I am saying it on all humility. I think if we start looking at things like people mock the whole idea of the Kumuye AI stuff and it a whole just unnecessary, a whole lot of crazy backlash that there's this current drive in our society now to just want to criticize everything and not posit or postulate any theory whatsoever. Just be a bad critic of good books. Just critique everything and say this writer doesn't know, but you've not had any chance to write anything.
I think on that note, I was trying to.
I can't hear you, said.
I said on that note, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
On that note, also trying to also tell of the situation. I say make the impression that there are those, like you said, making reference to Dylan. There are those who come later after you've done a particular thing. You come to many have made such works or pieces or performances even better. When you listen to other versions, like I think times are changing. I would prefer the woman's own version to what he did. But I've forgotten her name really. But when she did that particular rendition, I have that as a go-to when I want to listen to times are changing. But Dylan's version is more, you hear that raspy voice and you hear him and there's this, and all of the things that he created that art, right? And you don't blame the creator, or you don't those who do covers of a creator's piece. You don't blame the creator for the bad covers, right? So it's necessary we have that understood. And I was just thinking about the fact that some traditionalists too, because you asked that question too, I think we didn't really go there too much.
Yeah.
There's this issue right now. And I think Sophician, if I'm not getting that last name correct. Femi, the writer of the Women of Reno, and they had this back and forth. People don't really consider it, but it happened. What was back and forth? The Strong Breed was written by Wole Soyinka. Have you read the play, The Strong Breed?
Yeah.
Then, as a response to The Strong Breed, Femi Osofishan wrote No More the Wasted Breed. I think you've read both, right? I've not read both.
That's why I started laughing.
Because, when we begin to, this mentality of trying to stay on the ground that our tradition is all and all, it's the saving force. This and that, whatever, blah, 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 is what it is. That there's some people who will tell you, do you know that our tradition also failed us? They will tell you that, do you know that our gods failed us? And there was a point that Femi was trying to emphasize, or something was trying to emphasize in that particular. It was on the belly of Oloku, that these white men traveled from their place down to Africa took our sons and daughters, still traveled through the sea that Omokri is a goddess over.
And did nothing.
Nothing. And now, for somebody who is rational, you are saying yes, the Christian belief system with a lot of their dogmas or doctrines have those flaws, blah, blah, blah. Should we begin to expose the flaws too in our traditional belief systems too?
Of course.
So to tell, if we want to do comparisons, then you believe that, okay, maybe one is even better. But we don't even want to go to that argument. Because what you are calling us on to really has a lot of problems. If we start interrogating them, you will have people their own not even giving in to such worship systems. On their own, I'm not saying because it's bad or not good or whatever. Mind you, there are a lot about culture, a lot about those belief systems that are necessary for us as Africans to even know where we are coming from and where we should be going to. They are necessary to understand our past for a better future. Talk about some of the customs, particularly the arts. That is even my focus, the arts. From the festivals to some of the value systems obtainable around the arts too. We can lay emphasis on them, talk about them, promote them, but we are not necessarily promoting the worship. Because these things are part of us. We are alien. In the first place, we are alien to some of the Western cultures that came to us. This is what we used to practice before the white man came. But now you are now trying to totally discourage everything about it, trying to make it seem as if everything about the culture and the African culture or traditional system is all bad and should not be patronized. That is not true. So there is a balance we are trying to create. As much as we are Christians, we also understand that there are certain practices that are traditional we must also imbibe. For instance, you are in the West and you are wearing a native top, not because you don't like the white man's shirt or you do not like the white man's suit, because somehow there's actually what we call an hybridization in your appearance right now. There's a white man's and also so the brand is there. So I'm only saying that we must pick what is needful and useful. Like Paul even was saying that everything can be useful, but not everything is expedient, right? So we can pick what is useful, what is needful, what can be just utilized or whatever, or what you know that is not needful for your growth as an individual or as a community. Do away with them. For instance, in tradition too, we must not deny the fact that there was a system that allowed for men to really deprive their wives of some certain roles in the family. We must not escape that. It can't be escaped. And that was why feminist writers started even abusing the traditions that we hold, you understand, and trying to see how to critique it in a way to actually show its flaws and wishes of in the African context. So I'm only saying that there is a balance we must strike when we are trying to lay emphasis on what is what and what should not be. We can imbibe, like, okay, for instance, if not for the exposure I had when I was in Ibadan to the Jalaude, one of the poetic forms there that the Yorubas have touched. If not for our exposures to one particular research we went out for, I wouldn't even know there was anything like that. And not just that there was anything like that, something enjoyable as that. It was, although yes, they will tell you that it's a worship to Ogun, part of the rites they do before going for hunting, the praise of Ogun. But mind you, there was also a poetic form, or should I say a part of performance in that whole rite that actually has to do with the exchange between husbands and wives. Kind of a way of lampooning one another, critiquing whatever it is that men do in society and what women do in society. So there's this exchange you see, and it's quite entertaining in itself, but also very informative because they begin to transfer information. They tell of this history, tell of that history, tell of a particular issue that relates to women, tell of another issue that relates to men. And when you begin to pay attention to these things, you begin to learn of the history of the African people.
Of course.
You understand? So there are more to this than meet the eye, really. And it's something that one has to be very careful about, but also has to research to know that there is a balance, so to know what to choose and what to let go.
Of course. And I really appreciate the perspective you're taking down here. And many persons also fail to really look at the downsides of ordinarily our own side of the world. Sometimes when people become very zealous and extremist in their ways of thinking. They tend to forget also that, come on, we're not perfect people. No cultures, apart from the culture of being human, which has been an imperfect culture, can ordinarily be said to be perfect. If you look at Christianity, it has its own weaknesses there, and the church has never for once said it's not a weak institution, because the moment it says that, it stops to exist. Why did Jesus come in the first place? It came as a result of the need to ordinarily come to salvage something. And why do we go to church? We go to church because we want a better relationship with God and we want to come to know Him better. The traditional forms of worships, even if we are to even go back and we are to say, okay, let's go back to this, have these proponents really come to sit down to ask themselves, which one are we taking? There's the Yoruba man, there's the Ijaw man, there's the Hausa man. There's this proliferation of in and about this. Mind you, in and about this type of stuff ordinarily would come to give us the moral codes and conducts upon which we ordinarily are supposed to govern and guide our life. So if the Yoruba man ordinarily believes in the things he ordinarily comes to believe, and even within the Yoruba enclave, there now we are still asking ourselves, what is Yoruba? Is it do Yoruba? Is Oshun as Yoruba as Lagos? Is Ibadan the same as Abeokuta? So you see, while it's easy to just like we have to do this and we have to do this, but we are now within this place that is beyond our geographical expression. We are
What are
in
we,
Nigeria. You said?
what are we returning to, Rligion?
Yeah,
The
what are we
question.
really returning to? What are the literatures left behind? What are the theologies? What are the philosophies? What are the things we ordinarily will meet down there? Are we just going back to accept everything done in the past and forget the future, or we are to accept everything that has happened in the past and then still allow the white man's culture to ordinarily get to influence how we ordinarily do things? And you see this very simplistic approach also in people who ordinarily want to just blame in and about everything on colonialism, what Britain did to Africa. That's fine. That's fine. But what are we doing to ourselves? How many students who are currently studying history are currently studying history because they really want to be historians rather than wanting to be job seekers? How many students who are currently in the university studying anthropology are really doing, whether it was given to them or they got it themselves, how many of them are currently having the consciousness of saying, this thing I'm studying, it is what someone like Eme Duken ordinarily did and became a world-renowned anthropologist. It is what someone like Freud looked at and what someone like Carl Jung looked at and ordinarily came to understand the human person, because without anthropology, psychology would not thrive. Without
Even for,
anthropology,
even for the oral literary arts in Africa, it was
yeah,
because of anthropologists like Ruth Finnegan
yeah,
that we
yeah,
got
yeah.
the groundbreaking researches that we even use today to reference some of the things we talk about in oral literature. Because of such people. Yeah,
So
truly that.
if somebody didn't travel from the US with a camera or from the UK with a camera and came around taking pictures and recording stuff that happened about us, those things now that we put on the internet and say, look at what they did to us, look at what they took away from us. But colonialism, like my Indian friend will always tell me, it's always wrong. Colonialism is always wrong. That's the first argument to always go. But beyond that particular idea of always being wrong, how are we in the 21st century responding to that particular stuff? How are we training our children? How are we giving them this pressure to ordinarily go get the bag and come back? Are we telling them you can do almost anything you want to do and it's fine? Or you know what, I am your father and I think I ordinarily can tell you one or two things. Till my father died, he didn't stop telling me the things he believed he ordinarily should tell me. And he didn't he always told me, you've achieved more in terms of exposure than I have done from my little ties in Ghana, in Cairo, in Zim, and in Ethiopia. It's like you've done well for yourself, for your little ties to Belgium, the different countries you've been able to live and work and research. You've done well for yourself. And I pray people come to understand what you are trying to do, because it took me time to understand you. No ties to funds, no ties to money, trying to do what you're doing. And it's important. Somebody has to do the dirty work. Because if you also look at this clamor for money, my brother, if we go back, if everybody gets this money, who is the cleaner? Who is the chef? Who is the mechanic? Who is the organizer? Who is the driver? Who is the plumber?
Trying to make everything automated.
So when okay, who makes if we make everything automated, who makes everything automated? Because for the automated stuff, it has to be serviced. So who is going to be the servicer? So we still come back to the same place. I am not saying people shouldn't ordinarily make progress. I'm saying, how do we make those progress, and how should we go in a country like Nigeria? What will you say to the youths at the moment don't have voters card? Because we if you look at the election results, let's believe Mahmoud for once. I think we should write something about just INEC chairman, like in the last period of democracy. I think at least not the state chairman. Let's talk about the national. We should my brother, we should work on something about the policies and the life and times of INEC chairmen and women, if we've had them, so that we see who has been more compromised than whether guy is somewhere now sleeping, just like thinking himself a
Exactly.
saint. He's like, man, I was a very, very good guy. Like I was a saint. It's like every other person that leaves the office feels better. Buhari is currently feeling as though he was a saint where Tinubu is. Tinubu will leave office and another person will come, and look at the progression now. Look at Obasanjo. Look at Yaradua. Look at Goodluck. Look at Buhari. Now look at Tinubu. If Tinubu is given a chance to do 8 years or even 4 years and he goes to sit down one place, he will come out one day to tell us that we will miss him. So I don't know I don't know who can miss Tinubu. I don't know. Many persons will miss him definitely.
We said exactly the same thing of one, that there is no way that this guy would go and will miss him.
And we
Like,
miss him.
you miss him.
And we like and it's how we forget easily. Franz Fanon. It's how we forget so easily. Like it's like pain. The problem with this idea of also pain is sometimes the moment you've out of that particular place and you've gotten solace, if you don't really have a conscious mind, even with your level of consciousness, you don't really come to really feel it. You only feel it in your thoughts and in your imagination. But many persons just move past and they're like, oh, thank God we are no longer there. But look at the elections results. Is it 866? I think so. Is it 866 or 876? So if you join everybody that supposedly were active in the voting, let's say you put everybody at 50 million plus the ones that were rejected, because if you join the three results we have, we're still around 24, 25 million people who ordinarily accounted for we having a president. So we have a slumbering and a lazy voters community out there who don't care. They just believe, politics is not my stuff. Just give me data, give me skit, give
Yeah.
me give me food, give me love, give me. I know one die, I know one Clement, like Fela will say. The number is staggering. Let's say we have 40 million out of the leftover that are children. So we are still left with about 100 plus million that ordinarily should be able to vote, that don't even think about it. How do you reconcile that with the reality of saying, if this amount of persons come out, ordinarily things will change? Because next year is by the corner. People think, people are still wishing people happy new year. I get some WhatsApp messages and people are still telling me, I'm like, we're in February, February, finish. And they tell me next week is 14th, and February is left with 15 days. I mean, 14 days. So this year is not a leap year. So you get to see next week we're already left with 2 weeks out. This month is gone and we're left with 10 months. The election cycles, I want to call it cycles, because there are different factions that will come and start telling us different stuff, and activists will pop up here and there and stuff like that. What should Nigerians ordinarily do? Because I for myself, I believe voting is a civic right. People fought for this. If not for this, Martin Luther King probably would still be alive one way or the other. I don't know how old he would have been by now, but either been alive or died recently. So they were contemporaries with Mandela and stuff like he was even younger than Mandela when he died and all that. So people fought for this stuff. People campaigned for this. And here we have this stuff and we're not even using it. What about that?
I think for the population of people, time to consider if they should vote. They don't even give it. They don't give it mind. They don't give it any thought. Such people respond to this whole election process for several reasons. And I think the same thing applies to the American experience, to large population of people. And it's actually a problem they try to sing into the atmosphere every election period too, by either party. They're trying to emphasize the fact that there's also amount of number of people don't vote. There's a need for us to vote if we must vote out, whatever it is, and they do that to the Republicans a lot. So if you want to vote out, whatever it is, like that, so come out and vote, blah, blah, blah. And there's this feeling or atmosphere of not caring about whatever comes out. When in fact, whatever comes out as a result of the leadership that comes into power affects you.
Yeah.
You don't really escape it. So if you make the choice or don't make the choice, somehow your nonchalance or whatever it is will also result into something that you actually still experience.
Yeah, of course.
So the thing is that our people need to, first of all, believe that the electoral process is something that can be trusted. That is the problem. You just talked about Mahmoud. Before us, over and over again, we've seen from time, even there was, I think it was in 1979, after a particular election, 83 or 1979, the election that Obafemi Awolowo was part of. Not as candidate, but he was as like a stakeholder in one of the parties. He came out to actually question the result of that particular election and spoke about even cancelling that result and taking it. He just emphasized the lot in that particular election. And the point is this: simply from time past, it's been one issue. Like you said about Wole Soyinka speaking to the point that the problem with Nigeria has always been with leadership. And mind you, problem two with Nigeria, one of the problems too with Nigeria has always been with the process of electing our leaders. So if from time past we have been seeing the same cycle, how many people will trust the process? Because sometimes what people do, they deliberately indoctrinate younger ones with the mind that elections are always rigged. I was told that. I believe you were told that too. People tell us these things every day, every time. You understand? So we go into every election period with the mindset that if I vote, I not vote, it's a waste of our time. So for the first time, I would like to, I don't know if you're in Nigeria in that period, for the first time, there was this momentum to vote in Nigeria because of Peter.
Sure.
I kid you not, when I mean for the first time, if you see the people that came out, the crowd of people that came out to make sure they cast their votes, to see that this man becomes president.
I came, but I was unable to vote because I was unable to transfer my voting stuff to the place where I was at so I was around on the election. I was in Calabar for the elections and I saw people come out and people don't talk about
what Dike had to go through.
Yeah, of course. And it was heartbreaking to see him. First of all, I saw him read or gave that particular stuff from his head without a shirt, and I knew before he went to Arise, and it was much more formal, and I just, it broke me, First of all, I saw the piece he was putting up on Facebook, and I knew something is coming, but like he stated it clearly, he gave reasons why he was voting for P2B before the elections. He talked about frugality. He talked about him having less baggage, less political baggage and all that, and which is true. Nobody can contest that. And even in his recent podcast with Sheun, where he was on Mike's on podcast, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? And he said if it was between Yemi Osinbajo and P2B, he would have been really pushed to the corner. But in the last elections, there was nothing to ordinarily bring this stuff these stuffs together. This was a man saying, Mike Asukwo even did a caricature of Obi where people like were lighting torch and his boxers were like lid open and they were checking for stuff. You couldn't really find. And Obi's stuff is not something of yesterday. Please, youths, don't listen to Reno, Omokri, and Bayo Nonuga and the crazy stuff they have to put out against P2B. Come on. If we have to talk about equity and if we have to talk about this stuff, man came with clean hands. He had all he needed to ordinarily live his peaceful life. And if they tell you about what he did in Anambra and what are they accusing Obi of? He saved money. Is that supposed to be a crime? Obi saved money.
That's why I told you. These are the reflections of corruptions in our society. There's something wrong with the society. When it praises what should be condemned and condemns what should not be praised, or condemn what should be praised.
Yeah.
You understand this? Because in Peter Obi's situation, John did a lot of saving up of money. He did a lot of scrutiny of his own system and government.
Yeah.
He was trying to do everything possible to make sure that there were no porous ventures or avenues for people to be corrupt or whatever. And now you are saying that because of what he did, he cannot rule a place like Nigeria. We don't need such a person here because obviously he won't allow you to do your corrupt practices. So in itself, it's a pain. And I saw what Dike had to go through, and I felt bad, not just for Dike, but for the Nigerian people.
He was like, I stood in line. I didn't cross line. I didn't steal. I didn't snatch the ballot. I didn't do anything. I was there in line from the time I did to the morning I did, and a whole lot of stuff. Like, we really lost that chance. I strongly believe with him, we really lost that particular chance. And there's nothing you go through. You look at the man. Man, I know he's a philosopher, right? But even beyond just being a philosopher, he has led his life well in a place like Nigeria. And we ordinarily should give it to him. Youths, come on. When are they opening when are the registration for voters card? Is it ongoing? Is it something we have to check? Okay, I think I can check. Is it something they get to pause or is something that happens every time?
I think the registration is not ongoing. We'll soon to come.
So please, the next time you get to hear the registrations, try as much as possible to go get your voters card. Look, they tell you your votes don't count, but they need numbers to ordinarily declare a winner. They need those to ordinarily get to rig these elections. If nobody comes out to vote, they can't declare a winner. Even if it's 10 persons that come out to vote, they count with the number. So we can talk about the institutionalized ways of coming to do this stuff and the problems down there, but you also as a youth, you also as a young boy, you also as a young woman in Nigeria, ask yourself, you have data most of the times. What do you spend your time on? Which sites can we find you? What do you do with your time? Because you see Nigerians tell you that your podcast, can you reduce it to 30 minutes? I'm like, it's a podcast. It doesn't require that summary. Nigeria is too lengthy that you cannot talk for 20 minutes and you think you've spoken about Nigeria. I am not an AI chat bot that ordinarily should summarize things for you if you ordinarily want. But while I'm saying that, I'm also pointing to the fact that people who post skits, long skits, 12 minutes, 15 minutes, get views. People who, the YouTube Nollywood and the proliferation of channels down there still gets to see viewers in their thousands and in their millions even. So it's about where preferences are and where things ordinarily are and how things ordinarily are currently being championed and stuff like that. It is just me saying, we can do better. We should do better. And the way forward is the way forward. And we cannot lose hope. I can talk to my brother from today till tomorrow, from now till thy kingdom come. That's God's kingdom. We can't close it. And you cannot deny the fact that you know that there are no hospitals in your village. I don't mean buildings converted from something to something. I know you listening to us. No, I don't think you've ever used an ambulance, apart from the very wrong reason. using it to carry dead bodies, using it to carry people for burial. You shouldn't take ambulance to carry dead body. Dead bodies to be carried by hires. It's not supposed to be carried by an ambulance. I know that's the only reason why you've come to see an ambulance and probably you sat down there. But look at how people die. Look at how David Hundeyi's father died. Look at how Dim Anthony's father died. Look at how the Catholic priest, Father Kevin Ugu, the popular Catholic priest father, he said his father died. His father died a way he would never forget. Okay, let's come home. Look at how my own father died. Look at how my grandfather died. My grandfather was amongst those in the 90s and early 2000s who helped formalize the draft and everything about NHIS, the National Health Insurance Scheme. But at the point upon which my grandma, in 2004, was ordinarily supposed to be saved from this same scheme, there was no doctor in Calabar, so she died. 20 years later, the husband, my grandfather, was sick, was ordinarily supposed to still be saved by the same healthcare system he worked for tirelessly. He also couldn't ordinarily get admitted because what? Doctors were on strike. She still died. We can count the number of deaths that have gone on over and over. It mustn't be death. The accidents, the tanker explosions, the different stuff that get to happen. We can talk about these things from today till tomorrow, and you will think we ordinarily are just blabbing or making noise or sounding the gong. We are not talking about what St. Paul in 1 Corinthians 13 will be talking about. We have love in our hearts, and we are not sounding empty gongs. We are not blabbing about things we don't know. We don't speak in tongues of angels, but we try to have love. And we know, like he said in the end of verse 13, these three remains: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest amongst all is love. And we know with love in our hearts, we can revamp the system. We can talk about unity schools. We can talk about not looking at ourselves as strangers. That worry boy, that Hausa man, that Yoruba man. That's what they do. Now the Hausa and then betray Igbos. Now the Yoruba betray Igbos. It happened in the 60s. It's painful stuff. We cannot continue peddling these narratives. It divides us as opposed to ordinarily leave us together. The pressures you are facing, you having this hookup phenomenon, you have to deal with, you having this fraudster kind of lifestyle and the syndrome you've come to have. It is not the way you ordinarily should live life. It's not the way we ordinarily should go. You saying I'm coming to advocate the whole idea of church na scam, education na scam. They are not telling you the full picture. They're not even telling you half of the picture. They're not even telling you quarter of the picture. You are listening to people who ordinarily have not sat down critically to really look at things squarely for themselves. Man is not just a materialistic being in and about molecules and atoms and stuff like this. If not, life will be as boring as crazy. Life is not this existential pitfall upon which we clamor for our existence. What about essentialism? What about the purpose and the sense of our being? What about the real reason why we ordinarily are here? What about the fact that you would have been born anywhere, America, the US, name it, but you happen to be a Nigerian? What about listening to Frantz Fanon and say, every generation must come to identify its purpose, its mission, and genuinely, against all odds, walk towards that particular mission, or betray itself unfailingly, betrays itself irreversibly? It's up for us. It is up for us. We are here. Your children can continue shouting about Africa's problem and tie it to colonialism, forgiving you for the things you didn't do, as opposed to you ordinarily doing those things and at least saving these British colonizers who came ordinarily. They have received so much lambasting and so much stuff. I'm not saying they should stop receiving that, but I'm saying we have forgotten our own brothers and sisters who ordinarily at a point ate free meals in schools, who stayed 2, 3 in dormitories, who went to unity schools, who made friends from different places, who made friends with rich and poor people. But now they came into power because of lack of foresight. They lack the ways upon which ordinarily things are to go. And we are where we are. It is you and I. Dike will still tell us it is you and I who have done this. It is not God. It is not the devil. If God, anything should be, we should look at ourselves and say, my brother Karo, you be my brother. I don't need to from worry for you to be my brother. See my sister, Ekaite from Calabar, you be my sister, and I mustn't tie you to this sexual proclivity that have come to be talked about the Akwa Ibom people and the people from Calabar as the in and about the only anthropological fact you know about people from that particular region. No, we are more than what we ordinarily are. Don't listen to Gege when it comes to relationship issues, please. Don't listen to Cyberboard. Don't listen to Blessing CEO. They have nothing to tell you that ordinarily can help you. I've been talking to my brother. We've been talking about a lot of things. And if we were to ask if you could leave us with Johnny, is it possible?
So, Johnny now hard working guy man one do for my area. Who dey time we no know Johnny pack on yesterday cause everything we have finds and it's well. Like Oyibo Jack in dey for all trade make sick million aging pile fit see food dem go take cool. He dey also for river and land, for junction and street, for park and yard. Everywhere wey eye see work, Johnny na be the man for am. But since Victor Edi come ask one jam question, wey Oyibo dey call rhetorical question. If I no get money, wetin I gain? If I no buy the Benz, wetin I gain? Johnny break come burst for a room. He down face heaven dey ask, wetin I gain? You don't count the cost of every hustle and every work wey you have find too. But no fit buy am the Benz this year, no fit buy am the house this year, no fit give am the money to send Mille abroad for special treatment. Johnny come lose guard with water wey dey run from him eye with that same question. Wetin I gain? Johnny download the song. Now he can't dey on repeat. Like Igbo wey man dey smoke, the song dey give am high spirit. He don consider many things. Him mind dey this year. Patience now not dey mind, but hunger for breakthrough na him dey the chair. He know guy men wey don blow, and he know how their money take show. But he promise mama to do wetin legit and papa not to do wetin God forbid. Be like dey mind. Be like dey mind. Future dey mind. Because you guys do wetin you dey do. Because if it not be this year, wetin you gain? Whether na wetin Victor Edi mean o, no concern am. Na still that jam question dey mind. If I no gain money, wetin I gain? Johnny gas make some move, meet some old pals wey their day don break. They come give am one or two line with many things wey mouth no fit piece. After 2 months, he dey break. Every year, boss. Mama don wear. Papa don get driver. But Johnny get 5 years to survive life, sha. Based on one arrangement with some strong men for Osogbo land. I hear Johnny Tori, I come ask many questions. We head no fit carry, mind no fit bear. Last, wetin Johnny and him lives gon come gain? Na peace, na joy, na life, na wow. I know say that money na be the root of all evil, but also the root of many good. As it be the root of Johnny evil, it be like that for many too. My guy, as you see, sit down, think and well. Wetin you gain? If you gain the world, can't lose your soul. And for there you suppose ask, if I don't get the money and Dangote come dey see me as competition, but can't lose my peace, body, soul, and spirit, wetin I gain? So let me leave it there.
Wow, that was so refreshing. That it took me back memory lane. Wow. Waiting again, waiting you gain if we allow Nigeria go the way Nigeria go. My name is Biringkpa Mecca. I'm the host of the podcast Boring Conversations, and I hope we've not really had a boring conversation. As you've come to see, if you listen to this particular place, you come to see that these things are nothing boring at all, and they are very, very important conversations. And I've been talking to my brother
Karo Enajemo. Yeah.
See you next time.
Thank you for having me.
Sure.